My childhood sweetheart and I fell in love too young and crossed a line we shouldn't have. When we were caught, she falsely accused him of forcing her, which led to him being expelled. I couldn't bear to see him give up on himself, so I tutored him and helped him get into a top university. Years later, he returned, successful and accomplished, to ask for my hand in marriage. I truly believed he loved me, and that this was our destiny. But then, my former childhood friend, the one I grew up with, had the misfortune of marrying a terrible man. He forced her to bear son after son, and she died in childbirth on my wedding day. When my childhood sweetheart found out, he snapped. He set the wedding venue ablaze, killing me and my entire family in the fire. You deserve to be buried with her. If you hadn't meddled, she and I would have been living happily together long ago. When I opened my eyes again, I was back at the moment their affair was exposed. 1. By Ningxue. What did I teach you? How could you be so shameless? Madame Bai slapped her disheveled daughter across the face. Trembling with rage and heedless of the onlookers, she began to shout and curse. Bai Ningxue covered her face, which bore not only the red mark of a slap but also the lingering flush from the earlier passion. Meanwhile, Jiang Yamo was huddled in a corner of the girls' dormitory like a frightened quail. Not daring to make a sound. Mom, he forced me. I didn't do anything. I'm innocent. Bai Ningxue frantically tugged at her mother's arm, wailing and sobbing with pitiful tears, a sight that would move anyone who saw it. Clearly, Jiang Yamo was stunned upon hearing those words. He stared at Bai Ningxue in disbelief, unable to snap out of it for a long time. Madame Bai's fury flared even hotter. Disregarding Madame Zhang's attempts to stop her and their years of friendship, she lunged forward, grabbed Jiang Yamo by the collar, and began hitting him while shouting, "You beast, after all I've done for you, watching you grow up like my own son, and you dare to do such a beastly thing to Xiaoxue." Jiang Yamo howled in pain as he was beaten, and a crowd rushed in to break up the fight, plunging the scene into utter chaos. I stood outside the crowd, my mind still reeling. This scene felt all too familiar, a classic, hellish cheater caught in the act spectacle, yet just moments before, I was still at my wedding, standing on the altar in my gown, walking slowly towards Jiang Yamo, my heart brimming with boundless love for him and dreams of our future life together. I thought I was the happiest person in the world, finally seeing my years of secret affection come to fruition. But just as Jiang Yamo and I were exchanging rings, Bai Ningxue's mother burst in like a madwoman, sobbing and screaming that her daughter had died in childbirth. I clearly felt Jiang Mo's movements freeze. In the next instant, the plain wedding band fell to the floor and rolled away, disappearing into the shadows. Jiang Yamo then ran out like a madman, leaving me alone to face the sighs and whispers of hundreds of guests, friends, and family. In that instant, I knew I couldn't hold him back any longer. The joyous occasion turned into a farce, the crowd dispersed, and I was the only one left standing there. I never expected Jiang Yamo to turn back and come for me again. In just a few short hours, Jiang Yamo had become utterly despondent, his back hunched as if he could no longer stand up straight. Seeing him turn back, a flicker of hope stirred within me. I ran over and took his hand, wanting to tell him that the dead cannot return, and that this was something far beyond our power to change. But before I could utter a word, Jiang Yamo wrenched his hand from mine, his eyes filled with nothing but resentment toward me. He snarled, "Jian Jining, you should have died with her. If you hadn't meddled, she and I would be living happily together by now." What? Before I could even process my confusion and shock, he, his eyes bloodshot, shoved me violently to the ground. The back of my head slammed hard against the floor, a sharp hair ornament dug painfully into my scalp, a wave of agony shot through me, leaving me unable to get up. But Jiang Yamo didn't stop. He actually picked up a can of gasoline and doused me with it, lit a lighter, and without a moment's hesitation, threw it onto me. I was instantly engulfed in flames. A searing pain, 100 times more intense than before, immediately consumed me. Instinctively, I reached out, begging him to spare me, but the cold indifference in his eyes made it perfectly clear. He wanted me dead, to have me joined by Ningxue in the grave. I held in agony, writhing on the ground, watching as Jiang Yamo laughed maniacally, the reflection of the flames dancing in his eyes. He screamed maniacally, "You deserve to die. And so do the parents who failed to raise you right. I've already sent them ahead to keep you company." Haha, no, but I didn't do anything wrong. None of this had anything to do with me. I was even worried that Jiang Yamo would be expelled and never recover, so I spent all my time tutoring him, helping him step by step out of the darkness. Why should a good heart be repaid like this? Is this heaven's punishment for me meddling in someone else's fate? I was wrong, too. Perhaps my resentment was too potent, for when I opened my eyes again, I was staring straight at the turning point that would change my life. I had been reborn, so in this life, I'm going to sit back and watch just how far Jiang Yamo can go without my meddling. Jiang Yamo, Bai Ningxue, and I grew up together. We've known each other since childhood. Bai Ningxue has a great figure, fair skin, and a more outgoing personality than mine, so it's no surprise Jiang Yamo fell for her. But I had no idea when they actually got together. I only found out about their secret affair at the same moment their parents caught them in bed together. In my past life, though I was just a bystander in the crowd, my heart was tormented, because among the three of us, I was the one who fell for Jiang Yamo early on, but I was a coward. I didn't even dare to confess my true feelings, so I could only interact with them under the guise of friendship, just like when I was a child, and now. When I look at Jiang Yamo, all I feel is hatred. This whole love-addled brain nonsense is something you should just throw away. In her past life, Bai Ningxue's tragic ending was entirely of her own making. It was her own stubborn choice to marry that man from the countryside. The countryside isn't the scary part. The real horror is the deeply ingrained feudal mindset of favoring sons over daughters in that family. They were hell-bent on producing a crown prince with no throne to inherit, so. After her marriage, Bai Ningxue was forced into a relentless cycle of childbirth. In the end, she suffered a massive hemorrhage during a difficult labor. This was Bai Ningxue's misfortune. But why on earth is Jiang Yamo blaming all of this on me? Oh, right, I was the one who, back then, worried that Jiang Yamo would fall into despair and frantically tutored him. What's more, his mother used the excuse that studying was the only thing that mattered, locking him up and forbidding him from going out to find Bai Ningxue. It's laughable how Jiang Yamo kept waiting for Bai Ningxue to come to him, hoping for an explanation as to why she lied and threw him under the bus after their scheme was exposed. Now that's a true case of love blindness, completely unable to see Bai Ningxue for who she really is. What kind of decent person would, at the first sign of trouble, turn around and frame someone else without a second thought? Even after Jiang Yamo was expelled from school and plunged into dire straits, and despite his family forbidding him from seeking out Bai Ningxue, he still insisted that she had no other choice. Don't they have a cell phone or a landline? Was it really so hard to use any means of communication to explain? Unfortunately, Bai Ningxue never offered a single word of explanation about it, nor did she ever seek him out. Incompetent people can only shift the blame onto others. Bai Ningxue was one, and Jiang Yamo was another. How I hate that I was blind in my past life and misjudged people. 3. The mothers from the Jiang and Bai families made the scene bigger and bigger, to the point where even our department head and the principal were called in. Jiang Yamo was curled up on the floor, shielding his head. Mrs. Bai, having likely exhausted herself from hitting him, now demanded an explanation from his mother, but Mrs. Jiang herself seemed stunned that her son could have done such a thing. As she struck him, she wept and interrogated him relentlessly. Are you sure that's what happened? Tell me the truth. Her words made it clear she didn't believe it. In her eyes, her son was all bark and no bite at home. He couldn't possibly have had the nerve for something this big. But the truth of the matter was known only to Jiang Yamo and Bai Ningxue themselves. And, of course, to me. Jiang Yamo remained silent. Bai Ningxue sobbed, her eyes darting around nervously. There's nothing a liar fears more than being exposed. In the end, Jiang Yamo never did tell the truth. In my past life, I just thought Jiang Yamo was more emotional than rational. Having lived a second life, I can now see clearly, he's just a fool. Bai Ningxue didn't even hesitate to stake his own future and reputation, dead set on smearing him with all that filth. And he still had the nerve to think about covering for that person. He even stubbornly took Bai Ningxue's side, still deeply in love with the one who ruined his life, yet despising me, the one who pulled him out of the mud. Pathetic. How utterly ridiculous. I clenched my fists tightly, struggling to maintain my composure in front of so many people. Amidst the commotion, Mrs. Jiang suddenly fixed her gaze on me. She yanked me forward and, without a word, slapped me across the face. Of the three of you, you're the smartest and most sensible one. Why didn't you stop them? Why did you let them do something so disgraceful? Tell me, is Bai Ningxue lying? The implication was clear. I'm the one who always follows the rules, the top student, the child who never gives my parents any trouble. I should have been keeping an eye on Jiang Yamo, making sure he didn't do anything stupid. And that last part, he wants me to help make excuses, to get his precious son off the hook. I pressed a hand to my stinging cheek, my heart burning with indignation. I had been so lost in memories of my past life that I'd completely forgotten this scene was coming. What a careless mistake. In my past life, when I suffered this slap, I felt wronged, of course, but back then, my primary concern was figuring out how to help Jiang Yamo through his crisis. Jiang Yamo, likely fearing I would say something damaging about Bai Ningxue, actually rushed over and dragged me away on the spot, just as expected. Jiang Yamo tried to pull his old trick and grab me again, but I shook him off. Jiang Yamo was stunned. After all, for as long as I can remember, I had never once defied Jiang Yamo. I was a doormat, I admit it. So, whenever the two of them got into trouble, they'd mostly push me out as the scapegoat. In their minds, I was the good kid, the model student. A little mistake wouldn't matter. It's only now that I've come to realize this. Just because I have a good nature doesn't mean I'm the designated scapegoat. Everything I have, whether it's my academic achievements or the affection from my elders, I earned through my own hard work. The ones who really need to do some soul-searching are those two rebellious individuals with such twisted minds. It's true that the three of us grew up together, but that was really just a matter of proximity. The relationship between the adults is just what it is. If my mom were here, she wouldn't just stand by and watch me get treated unfairly. I'm a girl, but my parents have always doted on me like I'm the apple of their eye. In our family, we don't have that outdated, ugly preference for sons over daughters. I straightened up, looked at Mrs. Jiang who was being held back, and said coldly, Auntie, I'm not as idle as those two. I'm aiming for Tsinghua or Peking University. It's not my job to constantly clean up their messes. I'm not their mother. I won't slap you back for that hit. My mother taught me that the young should never disrespect their elders. That's just how I was raised. As for why your son would do such a thing, isn't that a failure of your own discipline? We share the bond of growing up together, but I've long since fulfilled every obligation I ever had. You can't reason with someone hell-bent on their own destruction. From now on, I want nothing to do with their mess. It's not my responsibility. My logic was sound. My words were pointed and carried real weight. Jiang Mo's current personality is partly his mother's doing. One only knows how to bully those close to home. The other only knows how to blame others when things go wrong. Neither ever looks inward. Every single one of you here. Don't even think about trying to guilt-trip me. Not a chance. Jiang Yamo was getting angry. He frowned at me, his tone forceful. How dare you speak to my mother like that? What's gotten into you? A flicker of confusion seemed to hide in his eyes. I let out a cold laugh and stepped right in front of him. That's your mother, not mine. Why are you taking it out on me? If you're so tough, why don't you go confront Bai Ningxue and demand an explanation? Getting angry now. Are we? You were doing a great job playing the meek little quail when Bai Ningxue was framing you just a moment ago. So now, just because I'm speaking up for myself, I'm considered a heretic. What a joke. Jiang Yamo was immediately left speechless by my retort. I thought for a moment and added, but you're right, I really shouldn't defy convention. Before the words had even finished leaving my mouth, I wiped the smile off my face and delivered a sharp, stinging slap, smack. The sound was crisp and loud, but I wasn't finished. I have a bit of a compulsive streak. And things have to be symmetrical, so, for the other half of his face, I swung backhanded and landed another solid slap. Watching both cheeks puff up instantly, I let out a long sigh. That felt much better. This was the first time I had ever shown such a fierce side of myself in front of others. Everyone's impression of me had always been the good girl, the bookworm, the pushover. No one had ever seen me like this. A sudden, heavy silence fell over the room. You hit me. How dare you? How could you possibly hit me? Jiang Yamo was stunned by my blow, his face a mask of shock and, deeper still, confusion. It took a long moment for Mother Jiang to react. With a shriek, she turned a vicious glare on me. You little bitch, what do you think you're doing? As she spoke, she rushed over and raised her hand to hit me again, but this time, I was prepared. I caught her large, fan-like hand as it swung toward me, suppressing the urge to slap her back. I turned and shouted at the principal. Principal, are you just going to let an outsider hit me? If you don't help, I'll have my mom transfer me to another school. Top students have privileges at school. Without another word, the principal had the security guard pull Zhang's mother away. He did scold me a bit, telling me to be mindful of my image and all that, but to me, it was all just harmless, perfunctory talk. Students with the potential for Tsinghua or Peking University are rare, and as luck would have it, I'm one of them. He's counting on me to get into a top school so he can use me for promotion and boost the enrollment rate later. I dusted off my clothes with a light, dismissive flick and looked at Mrs. Jiang, my smile not reaching my eyes as I said, Auntie, I'm simply using the same method you used on me to advise him. Weren't you quite comfortable hitting me, so? Why is it that when I adopt your method to advise a grown adult, older than me, capable of looking after himself, with his own independent mind, you're suddenly, not so pleased? What's the matter? Does it hurt you to see your son hit, but not when it's me? I raised my voice to a booming pitch, leaving Mrs. Jiang across from me utterly speechless. Suddenly, applause broke out all around, starting as a sparse smattering before swelling into a full-blown Roaring cheer. It was from the crowd of classmates who had gathered to watch the spectacle. Well said, can't bear to discipline your own son when he's at fault, but you'll hit an innocent girl who has nothing to do with it. Shameless, what a shameless family. Surrounded by the crowd's jeers, Jiang Yamo and his mother flushed and paled in turn, looking like utter clowns. I gave a gracious nod and a smile to the people around me, then turned and walked away. This was never my business to begin with. The fallout from their forbidden tryst ended just as it had in the previous life. Jiang Yamo was expelled from the school. Bai Ningxue's reputation didn't fare much better. She had previously cultivated a pristine, innocent white lotus persona, which had won her quite a bit of admiration from the opposite sex, even though Bai Ningxue kept insisting she was forced. Not everyone at the school was a fool about this whole incident. Everyone was well aware of the sordid little affair between the two of them. If Bai Ningxue hadn't covered for him, how could Jiang Yamo have gotten into the girls' dormitory so easily? In no time, Bai Ningxue found herself ostracized by everyone, with whispers and pointed fingers following her wherever she went. As for Jiang Yamo, getting stabbed in the back by the person he loved most and still not waking up to the truth. He had it coming. I'm not helping him this time. Someone that ungrateful deserves to rot in the gutter. 5. Ningning, would you come have lunch with me? Bai Ningxue came over to my desk and said pitifully. Wherever she went now, she was met with strange, scrutinizing looks. Truth be told, I really shouldn't have any reason to resent Bai Ningxue. She never did me any harm. It's just that her death indirectly led to my own suffering. The real culprit is Jiang Yamo. That idiot seems to have a brain the size of a pea, but in the end, I just can't get past this in my heart. What she did, trying to shift the blame, just made me like her even less. Dealing with someone like that, you always have to watch your back. But I agreed to her request anyway. However, as we were leaving together, my deskmate gave me a friendly heads up. Class rep, you know, with some people, you might think of them as friends, but they could stab you in the back. See, that's what everyone thinks. Upon hearing this, Bai Ningxue's face instantly turned ashen. On the way, she cautiously asked me, do you also think I was wrong in this matter? I have no comment. What else was I supposed to do? But I don't want to comment on this matter. In fact, I think what she did was great. At the very least, she got some well-deserved payback on my behalf. But you know how it is. I had no choice. If I got expelled, it would be over for me. My mom is counting on me to get into a good university. Ningning. You don't blame me, do you? I mean, Bai Ningxue was trying hard to explain herself to me, but to my eyes, it looked more like she was playing the victim. I stopped walking, took her hand, and kept nodding, earnestly affirming her words. Xiaoxue, I think you did the right thing. If I were in your shoes, I'd have done the same. Bai Ningxue seemed genuinely taken aback by my reaction. After all, my crush on Jiang Yamo was as plain as day, impossible to hide from anyone with eyes. Jiang Yamo, of course, was well aware of it. That's precisely why he felt so free to order me around and take advantage of me. As for Bai Ningxue, she possessed that uniquely feminine intuition, a natural sensitivity to matters of the heart. She could practically sniff out any hint of something going on between people. Hearing this, Bai Ningxue's expression froze for just a second before she quickly forced a smile. I'm glad you're not upset with me. We're best friends. You won't leave me, right? The words themselves were kind, but something about them felt off. A friendship of 3 is a crowd. And honestly, I was always the one forcing my way in. I was the errand runner, the one whose homework got copied, the one who provided cover. I really don't know why I was so determined back then to force myself into a circle I never belonged in. Well, who hasn't had a moment of sheer foolishness? Of course, I replied dismissively. Bai Ningxue is being isolated right now, with no friends to speak of. Naturally, she wants to pull someone in to get through this low point. I can just imagine it. Once this storm blows over, she'll be the center of attention again, and I, just like all the days before, remain isolated and ignored. But it doesn't matter anymore. The me from back then might have felt lost and hurt. Now, I'm thriving on my own. The reason I agreed to Bai Ningxue's request for a meal is that she's still useful to me right now. 6. Lately, whenever I come home, I can always hear the sounds of arguments and clattering pots and pans coming from Jiang Mo's house. It goes without saying that Mrs. Jiang is absolutely furious right now, and Jiang Mo has been completely down in the dumps, shutting himself in at home every day, now that he's been forced to drop out of school and lacks a proper degree. The best he can hope for by going out to work is to pick up a trade. The pay is lousy, and the work is grueling on top of that. Even though Jiang Mo's parents were only junior college graduates, they had pinned all their hopes on their son. According to my mom, the Jiang family has had a complete falling out with the Bai family. Mrs. Jiang always believed her precious son was incapable of such a disgraceful act. Meanwhile, Mrs. Bai was convinced her daughter had been wronged and was ready to call the police to settle the dispute. Mrs. Jiang once suggested that the two young people could simply get married in a couple of years, but Mrs. Bai would have none of it. The two families are only friendly on the surface. She has always looked down on the Jiang family's social standing. She believes her daughter is as beautiful as a goddess and deserves a better match. Only becoming a lady of a wealthy household would not be a slight. As for my mother, she has long been displeased with me being ordered around like a servant. But she respects my choices and doesn't feel it's her place to say much. Seeing the two families, who had always been on good terms, suddenly fall out, she, never one to shy away from stirring the pot, was more than happy to fan the flames. What era do you think this is? Sleeping together doesn't mean you have to be in a relationship. Upon hearing this, Mrs. Bai grasped my mother's hand as if she had found a kindred spirit, nodding emphatically in agreement. Mrs. Jiang, however, was not pleased. In an instant, she understood that Mrs. Bai looked down on her family. My mom chimed in again, but then again, if the two kids are willing, getting married wouldn't be a bad thing at all. It'd be a double celebration. And I'd save on one wedding gift. Mrs. Jiang then looked at my mother with gratitude. This, of course, upset Mrs. Bai. She started making passive-aggressive remarks, implying in no uncertain terms that Jiang Mo wasn't good enough for her by Ningxue. In the end, they naturally parted on bad terms. My mom told me the story with such vivid detail. I was blown away. That's my mom for you, playing the role of agent provocateur to perfection. Finally, with great earnestness, my mom told me I must never let love cloud my judgment. She said I was a good student with a bright future ahead, and I shouldn't let myself get sidetracked by other people's trivial dramas. In my past life, I would have found her nagging, reacted with rebellious anger, and cut her off to hide in my room for some peace and quiet. But now, I understand that only my parents truly love me, and love me unconditionally. In my previous life, my mother was actually very much against my marriage to Jiang Mo, but she couldn't bear to see me heartbroken and ultimately gave in. In this life, I won't let my parents be heartbroken again. With tears in my eyes, I looked at my mom and nodded emphatically. Don't worry, Mom. The foolishness in your daughter's head has all been burned away by the fire. My mom chuckled, then patted my head, praising me for finally growing up. 7. Mrs. Jiang, a rare visitor, knocked on our door. At that moment, I was buried in my study, grinding through practice problems. No surprise, she's here to ask me to tutor Jiang Mo. In my past life, I volunteered willingly, offering my help before they even had to ask. But now that I'm not stepping in, she's gotten anxious and came straight to my door. When Mrs. Jiang came to visit, my mom initially had a smile on her face, yet, Mrs. Jiang only gave my mother a brief greeting before walking straight over to me as I emerged from the study. Here she comes, marching right over without a shred of shame. Hello, Auntie, I offered a lukewarm, perfunctory greeting. Seeing my less-than-friendly attitude, she probably remembered the slap she'd given me earlier, and immediately reached out to stroke my face affectionately. I quickly stepped back. In my mind, this person was just as despicable as Jiang Mo. To them, nothing matters but their own interests. Other people's lives are worthless. In their worldview, we exist to serve them, to sacrifice ourselves selflessly. Anything less is considered a heinous crime. Pfft, come here, let me take a look. Oh, it's all right now. Last time, I was too anxious and lost my composure. I'm sorry you had to go through that. I was rolling my eyes internally, a weasel giving New Year's greetings to a chicken. Oh, please, that slap you gave me was ages ago. The swelling went down long since. The moment my mom heard I'd been hit, she couldn't stay seated. My mom has a short fuse. She goes off at the slightest spark. It's not worth getting into a major conflict with someone like Mrs. Jiang. That's why I never mentioned it before. What did you say? Why did you hit my daughter? Mrs. Jiang looked embarrassed and gave a forced laugh as she explained. Haven't I always treated Ningning as my own daughter? She made a mistake, so it's only right for me to discipline her on your behalf. I sneered inwardly, wondering what brand of makeup she used to cultivate such a thick skin. In the past, I would never have argued back, but now, I couldn't care less. What on earth did I do wrong to make you step in and discipline me in my own mother's place? Then, with a look of sudden realization, I said, oh, it's about that business with Jiang Mo and Bai Ningxue. That really is my fault. I failed to follow and monitor them around the clock as you wished, which ultimately led to the disaster. Because of this, you hit me, scolded me, and blamed me in front of the whole school. Yeah, I guess I had it coming. I deliberately sharpened my tone, the sarcasm in my voice unmistakable. My mom, who had been about to blow a fuse, calmed down the moment she saw my words turn Mrs. Zhang's face ashen. She even gave me a discreet thumbs up. She must have figured that with me putting on such a show, I probably wouldn't be the one getting the short end of the stick. The awkward silence lasted less than 3 seconds before Mrs. Jiang broke into a forced, hollow laugh. Swallowing her temper, she started sweet-talking me. Oh, dear, that's not what I meant at all. I know our Ningning is the sweetest girl, isn't she? What else can be done? After all, she still needs a favor from me. I couldn't be bothered with small talk, so I got straight to the point. It's so late, Auntie, what brings you here? Sure enough, Mrs. Zhang's expression grew even more amiable. You know, Jiang Yamo has been expelled from school, but I still want him to try for university again. He's a clever boy. He could manage self-study. As for you, you'll go and tutor him. The words themselves were a request, but the way she said it sounded more like an order, asking for a favor, yet putting on such a haughty air. What's this? Is your son the crown prince? Is tutoring him supposed to be some great honor I earned in a past life? Humph. My Ningning is about to take her college entrance exams. She barely has enough time for herself as it is. I'm afraid she won't be able to spare any time to tutor your son. My mom immediately took over, flatly refusing with clear annoyance in her voice. As expected, a mother only truly looks out for her own child. In my past life, I wasted almost all my time and energy on Jiang Mo, who was utterly unworthy of it. The constant stress left me sleep-deprived and on edge, and I came down with a high fever the night before the national college entrance exam. In the end, I was utterly defeated on that battlefield of supposed human equality. Jiang Mo, however, managed to get into a top-tier university. He owed his success entirely to me. I had painstakingly broken down every concept, spoon-fed him the knowledge, and even mapped out the key points for him. Not wanting to be apart from him, I had no choice but to settle for a second-rate college in the city where his university was located. Looking back, I must have been out of my mind. 8. Upon hearing this, Mother Zhang's face darkened. What kind of talk is that? Ningning and Jiang Mo grew up together. Surely she wouldn't refuse to help with such a small matter. Besides, tutoring my son gives her a chance to review and solidify her own understanding. Isn't that a win-win? We adults shouldn't always make decisions for our kids. Why don't you ask Ningning what she thinks? Looking at her, she's clearly banking on the fact that I'll almost certainly agree. It seems my crush on Jiang Mo has been an open secret for a while now. What on earth have I done to make everyone think I'd give up everything for Jiang Mo? Even in my past life, every time I finished tutoring Jiang Mo, I could only drag my exhausted and hungry body back home. Not only did Jiang Mo's mother never offer me a single meal, she didn't even bother to say, "Thank you for your hard work." Hiring a private tutor costs hundreds per hour. I gambled away my own future to secure a bright one for Jiang Mo. Anyone with a shred of common sense knows how crucial one's mental state is on the eve of the college entrance exams. We were under immense pressure. Beyond just reviewing material, we had to conserve our energy and maintain a perfectly balanced focus to keep our performance at its peak. And here was Zhang's mother, using the pretext of reinforcing key concepts to satisfy her own selfish desires. I've been far too generous with them. Auntie, my mother is right. You'd be better off hiring a tutor. I really don't have the time. I, of course, refused outright. Of course, my parents care about saving face, so I didn't put it so bluntly. You have to leave some dignity for the adults. But Mrs. Jiang clearly didn't see it that way. Her face instantly fell, darkening like the bottom of a pot, and she blurted out, "Don't you have to pay for a tutor?" Can you believe what she just said? So I'm just free labor. Huh, I sneered. I need to get paid too, Auntie. If you hire me at the going rate for a tutor, then I might be able to make some time. So you're worried about the money, is that it? You want me to work for free? Not a chance. My words struck a nerve with Mrs. Jiang. She shot up from her seat, visibly agitated. If I had that kind of money to spare, I'd hire a proper tutor. Why would I need a little girl like you? Her mouth works faster than her brain. I remained perfectly calm, not angry at all, just smiling. I'm a good kid, after all. I can't go around shouting like a fishwife. But my mom completely lost it. She started pushing Mrs. Jiang out the door while ranting, "Then go find a professional tutor. Your son is a prodigy descended from the heavens. My daughter isn't qualified to teach him. Goodbye. Don't let the door hit you on the way out. Get lost." The door slammed shut behind us, and my mom was fuming, ranting nonstop. The gist of it was that Mrs. Jiang was a real piece of work. How dare she treat my precious sweet girl like free labor? The sheer audacity. Ugh, who does she think she is? I kept nodding along in agreement. Yeah, absolutely. I've finally seen these people for who they really are. How foolish I was in my past life, to be treated like that and still give them my wholehearted devotion. I could just cry at my own stupidity. After calming my mother down, I pulled myself together and returned to my study to continue preparing for the battle. This time, I must win this fight and make up for the regrets of my past life. 9. The next day back at school, my deskmate, the one who looked down on Bai Ningxue, suddenly pulled me aside and whispered mysteriously that there was some major gossip waiting for me. She dragged me into the stairwell. A familiar voice drifted over from the corner garden. It was Bai Ningxue. Oh, you mean Jian Jining? She's a total idiot. I just love taking everything away from those perfect children parents are always raving about. I know she has a thing for Jiang Mo. That's exactly why I'm going to sleep with him, just to make her miserable. As for Jiang Mo, he's just a pawn in my game. I'm not even into him. He's average looking at best, and his family's nothing special. He's not good enough for me. My mother always said I was born to marry into a wealthy family. A surge of rage shot straight to the crown of my head. I had thought Bai Ningxue was merely the one who indirectly caused my death. I never imagined she was the source of all this evil from the very beginning. I can't believe she hated me this much. Is it just because I've always been a better student than her? The golden child every parent talks about. True, she was always doted on for her looks since she was little, but ever since we started school, it seems like that's all she has going for her. Now I finally understand what my deskmate meant by that comment last time. I looked at her with gratitude. She just smiled, sent me a bunch of videos, and then left without taking any credit. After watching the videos, I was left with a jumble of mixed emotions. I wonder what Jiang Mo will think after learning the truth. Just thinking about it, I can't help but feel a little excited. The day of the college entrance exam arrived quickly, fully prepared. I wasn't the least bit nervous. When estimating my score, I did a quick calculation. It was over 700, it's in the bag. Now, my only worry is whether to choose Tsinghua or Peking University. My classmates and I had a proper celebration. I heard that Bai Ningxue just gave up completely and hit rock bottom, scoring less than 300 points, not even enough to get into a vocational college. As for Jiang Mo, he didn't even take the college entrance exam. I was quite pleased to hear that. If Jiang Mo is down, I'm up, on my way home. Jiang Mo, whom I hadn't seen in ages, suddenly rushed out. He grabbed my shoulders like a madman, his eyes dark-ringed and filled with a sinister glare. Why didn't you help me this time? I was stunned for a moment, a single thought flashing through my mind. So, Jiang Mo has been reborn as well. No wonder there was so much confusion in his eyes when he looked at me before. He must be wondering why I'm not helping him like a fool, the way I did in our past life. Perfect. Old scores and new grudges can be settled together. I drove my foot hard into Jiang Mo's crotch. He immediately doubled over, clutching himself in agony. Why the hell should I help you? Because you killed me. After all I've done for you, this is how you repay me. Jiang Mo, just who do you think you are? Jiang Mo froze, ignoring the pain, his eyes widening in terror. So you've been reborn too? I gave no clear answer, simply warning him, from now on, stay out of my sight, otherwise I wouldn't be able to resist giving him a taste of his own medicine, but I can't. A scumbag like him has no problem ruining his own life, but I'm going to live well, and live twice as brilliantly. I immediately forwarded the videos my deskmate gave me to Jiang Mo. It's nothing major, really. Just Bai Ningxue bragging to others about how Jiang Mo was her pathetic little lapdog and how she never had any real feelings for him. Oh. And there are plenty of scenes of Bai Ningxue getting all cozy and flirty with different guys, but knowing Jiang Mo's personality, even if I showed him the evidence, he probably wouldn't believe it completely. Now that he's been reborn too, how could I possibly let the person who murdered me and my entire family off the hook so easily? So, I went to find someone, that man from the previous life who deceived Bai Ningxue, Wang Xian. I had to make the two of them meet ahead of schedule. In the past life, this man pretended to be a rich second-generation heir. Everything he had was rented, even his clothes. With his decent looks and by taking out loans to buy luxury goods for Bai Ningxue, he quickly won her over. The man thought the woman was a perfect catch, and the woman thought the man was a rich heir. Both were chasing after the other's illusory wealth. How is this not a mutual pursuit in another sense? Through my deliberate arrangement, the two met quickly. And sparks flew instantly. What ill intentions could I possibly have? I just enjoy watching a dog-eat-dog world. 10. The admissions office teachers have been blowing up our whole family's phones. The whole family was overjoyed. My dad was going on and on about throwing a big celebration banquet. My mom started spreading the good news to all our aunts and relatives. I watched it all with a smile, feeling deeply content inside. As long as it makes my parents happy, that's all that matters, in my past life. I, your daughter, caused you so much worry, but soon, a shocking piece of news completely crushed the family's joy. The Jiang and Bai families were thrown into utter chaos. Jiang Yamo killed by Ningxue. When the news reached me, a chill ran down my spine. Mrs. Bai knelt wailing and screaming at the Jiang family's doorstep, demanding an explanation. This was because Jiang Yamo was only convicted of manslaughter, so he wouldn't get a long sentence. The whole thing started, I heard, when Jiang Yamo caught Bai Ningxue checking into a hotel with another man. He flew into a rage, rushed over, grabbed her, and demanded to know why she had betrayed him. That man, as it turned out, was Wang Xiang, whom I had introduced to her. Bai Ningxue, smug about her impending marriage into wealth and harboring no feelings for Jiang Yamo, bluntly revealed the truth. Unable to accept the reality, Jiang Yamo, in the ensuing struggle, shoved Bai Ningxue onto the road, according to eyewitnesses. A truck immediately crushed Bai Ningxue's head to a pulp, scattering her brains across the pavement. Just thinking about that scene sends shivers down my spine. This outcome was beyond anything I could have imagined, but it was their choice to make. My conscience is clear. Later, before I reported to my new school, I heard the Jiang family pulled a lot of strings and paid the Bai family a hefty sum to reach a settlement. In the end, he was only sentenced to 1 year. After his release from prison, Jiang Yamo and his family moved away. After that, I lost all contact with them. I started to get worried. Jiang Yamo also has memories from his past life, and he's no fool. He's bound to use that knowledge to make a fortune. If he gets ahead of me, it'll be much harder to take him down. I cannot simply go our separate ways in peace. I won't be satisfied until I see him fall into the abyss. My life must go on. But I will not stop moving forward. 11. Several years later, I finally encountered Jiang Mo again. The timeline coincides with the very year we got married in our past life. I had already started my own company, becoming a formidable businesswoman and a wealthy tycoon, and he appeared as my competitor. Our two companies were bidding on the same project. I saw Jiang Mo again. He was radiant, already carrying himself with the air of someone in a position of power. I knew that after he moved away, he first worked to save some money, then wheedled a bit more out of his family, and poured it all into the stock market. He made a tidy sum, and after completing his initial capital accumulation, he started a company, choosing projects that had shown promising growth in his previous life. Seeing him doing so well didn't exactly improve my mood. For this bid, the entire industry knows I'm determined to win. The company that took on this project in my past life made an absolute killing. Jiang Mo's goal was naturally the same as mine. Seeing me at the bidding conference, Jiang Yamo walked over, his smile both cold and arrogant. Long time no see, Jian Jining. I curved my lips into a smile and responded generously. Indeed, it seems you've been doing quite well for yourself these past few years. I owe it all to you. If you hadn't helped me so much in our past life, even setting up the company for me, I'd never have learned all those insider secrets, let alone achieved what I have today. Jiang Mo's smile grew even more smug. I should thank you for doing all the hard work, only for me to reap the rewards. I smiled. It seemed he felt not a shred of remorse for the sins he committed in his previous life. In that case, I have even less reason to hold back. Seeing my silence, Jiang Mo raised an eyebrow. Even if you did me a great favor in a past life, I won't go easy on you in this bidding war. I scoffed. We'll see about that. So that's how you repay a debt of gratitude, by burning me to death. I deliberately dropped the quotation on the floor. I made sure Jiang Yamo caught a glimpse of the numbers on it before hastily picking it up, clutching it to my chest, and looking at him with a guarded expression. Jiang Yamo responded with a scornful laugh. Jian Jining. After all these years, I see you're still as foolish as ever. With that, he openly called his assistant over, gave a few hushed instructions, and handed over the quotation sheet he was holding. The assistant trotted off. Jiang Yamo left with a smile and returned to his seat, completely oblivious to the fleeting, sly grin that crossed my lips. 12. In the end, Jiang Yamo won. As if to show off, he looked at me. I curled my lips into a smile. Congratulations, to pay 10 times my estimated price. You're quite the talent. With that, ignoring his instantly paling face, I turned and left with my people. This challenge was my doing from the start. If I had to rely on luck to run into him, what would have been the point of living 2 lifetimes? The private investigator had already tracked him down. His every move is under my watch. Every major fortune Jiang Yamo has made, every smooth step in starting his company. I've been the unseen hand behind it all. Without me, he wouldn't even be qualified to stand in front of me. I'll admit, he's had a bit of luck, but against real talent, that kind of luck is nothing. Even our encounter at today's bidding conference was orchestrated by me. I was the one who leaked the information. My quote, of course, was also fabricated with false data. I dropped it on purpose, just so he would see it. If Jiang Yamo weren't so greedy and had a bit more sense, he wouldn't have altered the quote so readily. He's had it far too easy these past few years. He soared to the top without breaking a sweat. I suppose he's going to pour all his profits from these years into this project, isn't he? Pity. This so-called surefire project is nothing but a smokescreen I laid out. In my past life, everyone knew this project was a hot, money-making venture, but they had no idea it was rotten to the core. The company that secured it was barely keeping up appearances, putting out false hype and planting misleading news, all in a desperate bid to find a greater fool to offload it onto. And that idiot Jiang Yamo, in his previous life, was so single-mindedly pining for his lost love. I was the one running every single aspect of the company, big and small, while all he did was collect the profits, completely clueless about the actual business. He'd just swan into the office every day like some lord of the manor, playing the hands-off boss. It was just like when I tutored him back in the day. If I hadn't spoon-fed him the key exam points, he probably wouldn't have even known how to chew and swallow the information himself. 13. The news of Jiang Mo's bankruptcy reached me just as I was casually dabbling in the stock market. In recent years, I've acquired quite a few companies. I can make a stock rise or fall at my whim. For every single stock Jiang Mo bought, I had my people behind the scenes, manipulating the trades. I know he's thrown his last penny into the stock market again, dreaming of a big score. Now, it's time to reel him in. The stocks will plummet far beyond his worst expectations. With his mind, he probably can't grasp that even if you could see the future, there are two things you should never touch, the lottery and the stock market. Congratulations, Jiang Mo, he's lost everything. The timeline is about to enter a future neither of us can foresee. For him, there is no chance of a comeback. I raised him to the heavens, precisely so that his fall would be all the more devastating. I was in such a fine mood that I even graciously had all my plans leaked to Jiang Mo. What's the point of doing wicked deeds in silence if no one is there to applaud? Not a few days later, Jiang Mo came looking for me. Compared to the radiant Jiang Mo at the previous bidding meeting, he now looked like a beaten dog, clothes rumpled, hair disheveled, face unshaven, and eyes bloodshot. It was just like back when he was forced to drop out of school. The light had gone out from his eyes. Jian Jining, how could you do this to me? Why? The moment he saw me, Jiang Mo lunged forward, but was quickly blocked by a wall of people. Are you kidding? With a net worth in the billions, do you really think I don't have a dozen or two of those strong, muscular, and devilishly handsome personal bodyguards around me? I looked up slowly, toying with the lighter in my hand. Does this look familiar? After I was reborn, I bought an exact replica of the lighter Jiang Mo had thrown at me in my past life, as a constant reminder to myself, how utterly foolish I must have been in my past life to have fallen for such scum. How dare he even ask why? So my life, my parents' lives, they meant absolutely nothing to him. Is that it? Jiang Mo's forward momentum halted, and he came to a standstill. After a long pause, he finally lifted his head, putting on a defiant front. Yet his voice noticeably faltered. I was merely avenging Ning Xue. You got what you deserved. Even now, he still shows no remorse. I let out a cold laugh. Even after learning the truth, you still believe I'm the one responsible for all this. By Ning Xue got you fired, and you don't blame her. She was jealous of me, so she got together with you just to spite me and played with your feelings. Yet you don't blame her. If she truly loved you, she would have stayed with you even if you had nothing. But she went after someone else's money and threw herself into another man's arms without a second thought. And you still don't blame her. But me, I gave up a brilliant future for you, and you blame me. I've adored you since we were children. I was at your beck and call, did your laundry, cooked your meals, and you blamed me. I helped you build your company, worked tirelessly for it, so you could live a carefree life. And you still blamed me, for a crime I never committed, a lie you concocted. You killed me, you killed my parents, and after all that, with the fate you brought upon yourself, you still don't think you got what you deserved. Is there truly not a single shred of morality in your entire life? The more I spoke, the angrier I became. The foolish, ignorant infatuation of my youth clouded my heart and my vision. It took me until my dying breath to realize what a complete scumbag I had fallen for. After my verbal onslaught, Jiang Mo lowered his head and remained silent for a long time. After a long pause, he finally looked up, his tone softening considerably. His eyes were filled with hope and calculation. Ning, please forgive me. I won't hurt you this time. Can we start over? I thought. This was probably the funniest joke I'd heard in years. Forgive you, in your dreams. As for me now, I'm on the verge of becoming the richest person in this city, while he has nothing. buried under a mountain of debt. He may be willing to let bygones be bygones, but I'm not. What makes you think I'd ever forgive you? I looked at Jiang Mo with a face full of scorn. Looking at him now, he's really nothing special. Not even as impressive as the bodyguards around me. My mistake was seeing him through rose-tinted glasses when I was young. Jiang Mo's composure shattered instantly, his face etched with panic. I was a fool back then, completely blinded and led astray by that wretched woman, by Ningxue. Now I realize you were the only one who truly cared for me. Ningning, you still love me, don't you? I couldn't help but laugh, seeing no point in further words. I simply waved a dismissive hand toward the bodyguard. The bodyguard immediately dragged Jiang Mo out. I feel like I'm wasting my breath just talking to him. 14. Before long, the hot search list exploded. A male body, burned to a crisp, was discovered in an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of the city. Identification is currently underway. I glanced at the date. The timeline had just reached the day of my wedding in my past life. The very day I was burned to death. Jiang Mo, how does it feel to be burned alive? You have no one to blame but your own greed for taking out all those high-interest loans. I can restrain myself from breaking the law. But do you think the dark forces will let you off the hook? In this moment, a wave of relief washes over me. It's as if a heavy shackle I've worn for so long has finally fallen away. From now on, I'm going to live my life, truly my own. In the evening, my mother called and said she had seen old Mrs. Jiang. She was in a daze now, barely recognizing anyone, acting completely deranged. She was just squatting at the entrance of her old home, wailing and muttering something like, "It's all gone. Everything's gone, it's retribution, all retribution." My mother was absolutely terrified. In the past, the old couple couldn't bear to leave their longtime neighbors, so they had always stayed in their original old house. But given Mrs. Zhang's current mental state, there's no telling what drastic action she might take. It was high time to leave that apartment building, with all its memories, far behind. The very next day, I bought a large villa and moved the whole family, including my parents, to our new home. Perhaps in the future, I will meet someone who truly understands, loves, and appreciates me, and together we will build a life of love, companionship, and mutual respect. Or perhaps, I'll just go on living by myself. But so what? These days, I have both money and free time. Living alone, I can still lead a carefree and fulfilling life. Story 2. My fiancé Xingxiu, a psychiatrist, fell in love with his patient Songzhen. Without hesitation, I reported their affair to the hospital. Xingxiu faced disciplinary action. Songzhen later committed suicide due to depression. Xingxiu took his anger out on me and pushed me off the building. Falling for Songzhen was my mistake. But how dare you kill her? Let's try this again. I overheard 18-year-old Xingxiu sending voice messages to Songzhen. He clarified simply, his tone dripping with affection, "Lin Jing and I are just neighbors. It's you I love, my little rose." Just beyond the door, I clutched Xingxiu's cancer diagnosis in my hand. The paper crumpled from my grip. 1. Xingxiu and I grew up together as childhood sweethearts. With our families being close, the adults would jokingly talk about arranging a marriage between us when we were kids. Nearly everyone took it for granted that we were an item. We just hadn't made it official yet. During winter break in our senior year of high school, both Xingxiu and I went for medical checkups. My health is excellent, with all indicators within normal range. Xingxiu, however, was diagnosed with early-stage leukemia during this checkup. I rushed to Xingxiu's home immediately after receiving the medical report to review it together. Thanks to prompt treatment, the cancer cells in Xingxiu's body didn't spread, and he made a full recovery within a year. In my past life, I missed the college entrance exam that year to accompany him through chemotherapy. After retaking the exam a year later, I ended up at a different university and program than I'd originally dreamed of. After Xingxiu recovered, he performed exceptionally well in the exams. To everyone's surprise, he got into the most prestigious medical school. After graduation, she became a highly sought-after psychiatrist. This time, I won't waste my future and youth nurturing a worthless man. I placed the medical report on the entryway cabinet of the Xing residence. Along with it, I returned the keys granting access to the Xing household. Mr. Xing is constantly tied up with business engagements, leaving early and returning late. Mrs. Xing is hooked on social mahjong games. She won't stop until she's had her daily fix. As for when they'll actually get around to reading that medical report, God only knows. 2. Back home, I saw my parents, looking years younger, enthusiastically discussing something. It felt like a lifetime had passed. My father noticed I'd returned. They just mentioned to me about the family's plan to buy a new home. The place we live in was originally allocated by my parents' work unit. By my senior year of high school, 3 generations had lived there. In their earlier years, My parents barely managed to scrape together the down payment, because I refused to abandon Xingxiu during his critical illness, especially when his family couldn't afford the medical bills. I even asked my parents to contribute part of our down payment to help the Xings through this tough time. This time, I genuinely smiled and responded enthusiastically at the dinner table, "Sounds great. Are we looking at properties in the Southern District?" My parents exchanged glances. They've shortlisted several properties, with the one in the Southern District being their top choice. I live in the eastern part of town, while both my school and parents' workplaces are downtown. Commuting to school and work isn't really an issue, it's just that, my mom asked with concern, "Won't this affect your studies?" I smiled faintly, "Mom, during the second semester of senior year, I could board at school, it's just," my mother's gaze hesitated for a moment, "just can't help you with the move." Mom visibly relaxed after saying that. After dinner, I went back to my room to study, though in truth, I was eavesdropping on my parents' conversation in the next room. My dad said to my mom while washing dishes, "Kids are always changing their minds, who knows what they really want. When you sounded her out today, didn't she say it wouldn't affect her?" My mom said with lingering fear, "Let's hope so, but with us moving farther away, will Xiaojing really be willing to leave Xingxiu behind?" My dad is more of an optimist. Linjing has always prioritized her studies. Don't worry, she knows her own mind. 3. In my past life, after I started dating Xingxiu, my mother never really approved of our relationship. I asked her why. "You keep giving unconditionally, and Xingxiu has grown accustomed to your sacrifices. This kind of relationship isn't stable." Once, my mother didn't get to finish her sentence before I cut her off. Back then, Xingxiu was all I could think about. How could our decade-long relationship possibly be unstable? That's all I could think about, until the day Xingxiu missed my wedding dress fitting. I went to the hospital to find him. There they were, him lifting Songjin onto his desk, the two locked in a passionate kiss. Nothing in this world is truly unbreakable or permanent. I secretly snapped photos through the door crack, then immediately emailed them to all the top hospital administrators. Had Xingxiu cheated with someone else? I might not have been so consumed by rage, so hellbent on ruining them both, but the one he cheated with was none other than Song Zhen. In their past life, she was the impoverished transfer student Xingxiu inexplicably fell for during his senior year. For her sake, Xingxiu bore the stigma of teenage romance, watching his grades plummet, skipping classes, parental summons, fighting demerits. He committed every conceivable teenage transgression. But what about Song Zhen? She turned Xingxiu's youth upside down and nearly ruined his future. The moment Xingxiu was diagnosed with cancer, she cut ties with him immediately. Later, I even helped the cancer-stricken Xingxiu to reach out to her. Public records reveal a startling contrast in Song Zhen's character. Beneath her gentle, resilient facade lies a tangled web of affairs with wealthy heirs. Watching Xingxiu fighting for his life in that hospital bed, I ultimately couldn't bring myself to tell him the whole truth. After all these years, Xingxiu and I are finally getting married. Against all odds, they found their way back to each other. My years-long relationship with Xingxiu was like a child I'd raised with my own hands, only to watch it drown in that river they call time. My heart aches as if bleeding. That's exactly why I'll make them suffer more than I do. But after the truth came out, I never got to witness Xingxiu coming to me with remorse and apologies. Song Zhen is dead. This came completely out of the blue. I had no idea her depression was actually real. I thought it was just another one of her manipulative tactics to win Xingxiu's sympathy and reconcile with him. Just like in high school when she pretended to be a pitiful scholarship student, only to be seen hopping into a parked Kian around the corner. She's a master at these games. Yet Xingxiu blamed everything on me. He argued with me. Falling for Song Zhen was my mistake. But how dare you kill her? I fired back without backing down. You're blaming me for her death. Why not admit your incompetent medical skills failed to cure her? Xingxiu, is this your idea of medical ethics? Treating depression by taking patients to bed? You're engaged. She knew you were getting married. You two messed up first. So why is everything suddenly my fault? Xingxiu laughed through tears, his sanity hanging by a thread, yet that didn't stop him from shoving me straight out the window. 4. The weightless sensation of plummeting from great heights. Everything aligned perfectly with my dream. I screamed in shock, my voice failing me. Hearing my cries, my parents rushed into my room to comfort me. Calm down, what's wrong? Don't be afraid, it was just a dream, just a dream. I looked up at my concerned parents, wiping the sweat from my forehead. Mom, Dad, can we move out sooner? My parents exchanged glances and agreed for now. After being reborn, I had two modest goals. First, wait for Xingxiu to die. Second, tell him to get lost. 5. I stayed holed up at home until the new semester began. When Xingxiu messaged or called, I'd just read without replying. I muted all group chats involving him. Since he lived just upstairs from me, he came to visit several times. Either he got the door shut in his face, or my parents would brush him off with excuses. Xingxiu was acting strange. I used to revolve my whole world around him, making him the center of my life. My sudden disappearance must have left him unsettled, but soon, Songjin became the center of his world. His social media unexpectedly filled with dawn vegetable harvests in the suburbs, snapshots of sunrise from produce carts, quirky market vendor stories. For secure document protection, choose Xiaohubot reliable, trustworthy, and hassle-free. Yet during the critical Gaokao year, he'd still trek from downtown to Songjin's rural home to help out. While all students burned the midnight oil preparing for college entrance exams, he basked in the morning sun of the suburbs, toiling in the fields, my eyes bloodshot. I revisited mountains of past exam papers, scrambling for every precious point. At the market, he haggled fiercely with customers over every penny for a pound of vegetables. Between the lines of his social media posts, a shift in perspective became evident. Those carefree days of focusing solely on studies struck him as dreary, suffocating, and mind-numbingly dull, yet the simple transactions at the wet market seemed vibrant, warm, and brimming with life to his eyes. I couldn't tell which was true. Was Songjin genuinely this captivating, or had Xingxiu's brain cells been hijacked by cancer? He's blocked his parents and teachers on social media, while sharing everything openly with classmates and friends. His close friends wouldn't just stand by watching him spiral out of control. When they tried to talk sense into him, he ended up convincing them to buy extra groceries before leaving. They had no choice but to seek help from teachers, Xingxiu's parents, and even me, hoping we could talk some sense into him. Xinyan, my high school desk mate who used to be the biggest shipper of me and Xingxiu, 6, she called me, sounding like she was about to lose it. What's going on with you and Xingxiu? How did he turn into the male version of Wang Baochuan over winter break? He must have uprooted every vegetable sprout across the mountains. I couldn't help but laugh. Don't laugh. Did Xingxiu break up with you? I told Xinyan about how Xingxiu confessed to Songjin. Xingxiu and I are just childhood neighbors who grew up together. We might look close, but that's it. He's never confessed to me. And I've never said I liked him. Xinyan, we were never together to begin with, so there's no breakup to talk about. Xinyan paused for a split second before going completely ballistic. Police, what kind of just a neighbor remembers your period and brings you heating pads and ginger tea? That's no damn neighbor. During stream selection, Xingxiu was clearly better at sciences. Yet he fought like mad with the homeroom teacher to switch to arts for you until you compromised and both went to science class. Name one holiday besides Tomb Sweeping Day when you didn't prepare gifts for him, and he used to reciprocate too. Weren't you two just one confession away from being together? How did things end up like this? I listened quietly as Xinyan recounted every detail with fondness. Finally, my heart clenched. Isn't a confession all that's missing between us? In my past life, I received that confession by Xingxiu's hospital bed. Seeing me exhausted and slumped asleep by the hospital bed, Xingxiu finally couldn't resist ruffling my hair, whispering those words, "Calm down, I do like you." Such beautiful promises, all because we were too young. What I believed to be unwavering devotion, in truth, it was merely Xingxiu's pity or gratitude toward me. I fought tooth and nail to save Xingxiu's life, yet he could just as easily take mine over Songjin's death. So whose love for whom was truly unwavering? Isn't the answer obvious, Xinyan? It's just Xingxiu. How could he compare to the college entrance exams? Xinyan's family is wealthy, so even if she fails the exams, she can still study abroad. That's why she can ship couples without a care in the world. But I'm not. Xinyan was cheerful by nature and didn't dwell on it. Screw that jerk. Once we're in college, you'll have your pick of handsome guys. I laughed it off and changed the subject. I've already wasted too much on a relationship that wasn't worth it. Now is when I take back control of my own life. That evening, our family was having dinner. 7. Suddenly we heard violent shouting and the sound of things being smashed from Xingxiu's apartment upstairs. My father stood up. He and Xing's dad used to work at the same company. Hearing the commotion, his first instinct was to break up the fight. My mother frowned and told him to wait. My parents exchanged glances before turning their attention to me. I said calmly, "Dad, they're still upset. You should go later." Dad grunted in agreement and sat down without moving. My mother said calmly, "The whole neighborhood's been talking." It turns out Xingxiu kept sneaking out to help a girl's family sell vegetables, until someone recognized him and told his parents. My father picked up his chopsticks again. "Oh, so that's what happened. Since it's none of our business, there's no need to get involved." But who would have thought? Right after dinner, Mrs. Xing showed up at our door with a badly beaten Xingxiu in tow. My parents were stunned, but couldn't very well turn them away. My mom was pulled onto the sofa by Xing's mother, listening to her tearful complaints. I thought it would just be a simple venting session, but then Xing's mother pointed at Xing Xiu standing ramrod straight in the living room and scolded. "This boy and your daughter Ling Jing were always so close. It's all that vegetable vendor girl's doing. She's the one who convinced him to skip studying during this crucial final year of high school to go sell vegetables with her in the suburbs. After all these years between our families, I only recognize Ling Jing as Xingxiu's rightful match. That vegetable peddler will never ruin my son's future. It's Xingxiu who wronged Ling Jing. Bring her here. He must apologize to her properly, Mrs." Xing's words came out all jumbled and contradictory, but the underlying message was clear. She meant to shackle me to Xingxiu permanently. My mother gently brushed away Aunt Xing's hand. "You're just overwhelmed with grief. Who's this vegetable vendor girl? What's her relationship with Xingxiu? How did this suddenly become about staying calm?" My dad jumped in and said, "Ling Jing hasn't left the house all winter break. Nor has she seen Xingxiu. Isn't that right, Xingxiu, Xingxiu?" His handsome face cold and arrogant, retorted, "Mom, save your breath. I only like Song Zhen. Ling Jing means nothing to me." My mother chuckled softly. "Mrs. Xing, did you hear what Xiuxing just said? What does Xiuxing's crush have to do with Ling Jing? The only connection between them is being classmates and neighbors." My father's tone turned stern too. "You're a senior in high school already, still thinking about relationships. I'm going to have a word with old Xing about this, Mrs." Xing watched as Xingxiu undermined her efforts while my parents remained unappreciative. She stopped crying abruptly and hurriedly dragged Xingxiu away. She came behind Mr. Xing's back this time. "If he finds out, there'll be hell to pay at home." My dad even called out when opening the door, "Don't come again next time." After closing the door, he started venting to my mom, "We need to move out of this place ASAP. These neighbors have the audacity to treat my daughter as their backup option. Just because we've been living next to each other for years. Do they really think their precious Xingxiu is the only eligible bachelor in town? What absolute nonsense. The neighborhood in the southern part of town is technically a resale property, but since the previous owner never moved in, it's practically brand new. 8. With all the furniture and appliances already in place, our family basically moved in with just our suitcases. On moving day, my dad hired a moving truck to transport our essential belongings. All our longtime neighbors kept asking why we were moving so abruptly. My dad chuckled and said, "Out with the old, in with the new. We'd have to move eventually anyway. Doing it now saves us some hassle." Mrs. Xing peeked at us moving from her balcony, trying not to be noticed. She didn't dare show her face, afraid of attracting gossip. Then Xingxiu showed up, his face bruised and swollen from a beating. With a look of concern and anxiety, he asked, "Ling Jing, why did your family move out so suddenly?" I snapped, "To save myself from being someone's backup plan." He quickly explained, "Ling Jing, that was Mom's idea. I never intended." I cut him off. "That day at home, I heard everything. We're through, Xingxiu." Xingxiu's lips turned bloodless. My words carried the finality of a judge's gavel. "Xingxiu, and I should have ended this long ago." As we spoke, I caught sight of a gaunt figure lurking near the neighborhood gate. It was Song Zhen. I deliberately positioned myself to make our silhouettes appear intimately close, as if we were reluctant to part. Xingxiu was still trying to mend something. "Calm down. Can we at least stay friends?" I smirked without smiling. "Xingxiu, don't flatter yourself. I wouldn't even want you as a neighbor, let alone a friend. If it weren't for the hassle of transferring schools during senior year, I wouldn't even want to see you again. From now on, it's just like you said, we're done." I emphasized the word "we" with deliberate weight. Xingxiu's face crumpled with heartbreak. Just look at how he reduced our childhood bond of over a decade to mere neighborly acquaintance with a few careless words. When I finally gave him what he wanted and disappeared from his life, he suddenly started getting nostalgic about me. What a joke. Mom called out to me, "Chill, let's go." "Got it." I responded cheerfully, darting toward my parents like a homesick bird returning to its nest. Only after being truly reborn, did I finally understand that ancient verse, "The caged bird longs for its forest, as the pond fish yearns for its deep waters." No matter how fierce the storm outside, at least I still have a home to return to. Truck loading completed. 9. Our family got into the private car while waiting for the property management to open the gate. Just as I expected, I saw Song Zhen running tearfully into Xingxiu's arms. It was the liveliest time of day in the neighborhood. Mrs. Xing had been watching everything from upstairs the whole time. How could she miss seeing that vegetable peddler girl she so despised, brazenly coming to her doorstep to seduce her son? In no time, Mrs. Xing stormed downstairs, forcibly separated the two, and slapped Song Zhen across the face. The security guard slowed down even more to watch the commotion. My father frowned and tapped the horn. Xingxiu turned to look. The rearview mirror reflected his bewildered and ashamed expression. The whole family had to witness such an embarrassing and humiliating scene. As our car drove off, the security guard even gave us a "see you around" hand gesture. My father flushed crimson and muttered, "We've known each other for years. Even they think our family got a raw deal. They deliberately slowed everything down just to make us watch the show." Pfft. I couldn't help but burst out laughing. Laughter is contagious. Both my mom and dad couldn't help but burst out laughing. It's not very nice, but part of me still wants to say, serves you right. After being reborn, I have two little goals. 10. 1. Wait for Xingxiu to die. 2. Get the hell out of here. After moving, my parents let me pick my room first. I chose the east-facing one. 11. Waking at dawn to catch the first rays of sunlight, that's what rebirth feels like. The gentle sunlight danced across my book pages like mischievous sprites. I've lived a lifetime in blissful ignorance. Time is far too precious to me. With just months left before the college entrance exams, I asked my parents if they could find me a private tutor. Mom and Dad didn't say much. Deep down, we were all relieved that Xingxiu's situation hadn't affected me much. They quickly found a suitable tutor through connections. It was Jiangli, a sophomore from a prestigious university. He truly lives up to his name, a born scientist through and through. Even the driest scientific concepts become accessible and profound when he explains them. In my past life, I went through college entrance exam retakes. The national college entrance exam remains, even years later, a regret I can do nothing about. In countless nightmares, I find myself back in the Gaokao exam hall, staring at completely blank science test papers. I'm so nervous I can barely breathe. Gripping my pen but unable to write a single word, because in the dream, the exam paper is completely blurred. I can't make out a single question. When I wake up choking back tears, Xingxiu lying beside me just sneers. After all these years, you're still scared of the college entrance exam. Not a single word of comfort. He's already made it big. Of course he couldn't care less about how I feel, but I can't do that. Only then did I realize, what truly terrified me to the core wasn't the college entrance exam, but that overwhelming sense of powerlessness over my own destiny. When winter break ended, I returned to school. 12. Xinyan wrapped a concerned arm around mine. Easy there, you okay? I was completely in the dark. Xinyan said, haven't you checked the class group? An anonymous account posted a video on the campus confession wall. I watched the video on the phone Xinyan handed to me. It showed Songjin going to your place, hugging Xingxiu, and then getting beaten by Xing's mother. Xinyan said, the whole school's buzzing about how you and Xingxiu were childhood sweethearts, yet you let that naive freshman Songjin steal him right from under your nose. Some are even saying you filmed that video and posted it from a burner account. Everyone's waiting to see how you'll win Xingxiu back. I frowned. The ridiculous drama finally splashed onto me. Xingxiu and I were classmates. I thought running into each other would just be awkward, but trouble has a way of finding me. After class started, the homeroom teacher gave the whole class a stern lecture from the podium. For secure document printing, choose Xiaohubot, reliable and hassle-free service you can trust. This is the most critical year of high school. Show some respect for yourselves and others. Cut out all that romantic nonsense. I raised my hand to request a seat change. The homeroom teacher glared at me for a moment, then shifted his furious gaze to Xingxiu sitting in front of me. Eventually, he separated us by banishing us to opposite corners of the classroom. It felt like we were being exiled to the frontier. We both consistently ranked in the class's top 10, with Xingxiu occasionally topping the entire grade in individual subjects. The teacher could tolerate someone's self-destructive stupidity, but would never allow it to disrupt other students' learning. I told my dad about it, and he immediately brought the neighborhood surveillance footage to the teacher that same day. The footage showed our whole family busy moving out of the neighborhood. By the time Songjin lunged at Xingxiu and got hit by Xing's mom, our car had already left the neighborhood gates. The camera angles and timeline prove it's impossible for me to have shot that video. My father repeatedly confirmed that Xingxiu and I were just longtime neighbors. How dare someone with no self-respect drag my daughter into this mess? She's a senior now. Any emotional disturbance could ruin her college entrance exams. Hearing how furious my father was, even the homeroom teacher grew ashamed and promised repeatedly to clear my name. The confession wall video was taken down almost immediately. Songjin's first-year homeroom teacher summoned her parents. 13. Her parents knew they were in the wrong. His idea of discipline was to publicly drag Songjin over and slap her hard across the face. Coincidentally, Xingxiu happened to be there for a parent meeting that same day. He immediately rushed over and got into an argument with Song's father. It happened during recess. with teachers and students on different floor corridors all witnessing this dramatic scene. Xinyan couldn't resist either and ran out to watch. I put on my headphones, shutting out that farce from my world. An ambulance arrived on campus. During the scuffle with Mr. Song, Xingxiu got shoved in the head and immediately collapsed, with unstoppable nosebleeds. Many people were terrified. At the hospital, doctors ran numerous tests before solemnly informing Xing's parents about his condition. The parents were stunned. Their son had been perfectly fine just days earlier when he got into that fight. How could a simple shove lead to a leukemia diagnosis? When the news reached school, many felt like they were living through the pages of some tragic coming-of-age novel. The star-crossed lovers from vastly different worlds were cruelly kept apart by those around them, yet they loved recklessly, defying their parents and sacrificing college entrance exams. Now Xingxiu's cancer diagnosis casts a heartbreaking yet poignant glow over their youthful romance. Xinyan couldn't help but feel utterly dejected. Wait, wasn't it Xingxiu who wronged you last week, with Songjin playing the innocent homewrecker? How did this suddenly turn into some tragic teenage romance? I smiled and ruffled Xinyan's hair. Focus on your studies. Even soap operas would reject this cliché melodrama. Why bother watching it? Xinyan snapped impatiently. Damn right. I'd rather read books than watch those trashy scumbags. Ha, this story no longer needs me. The lovesick, venomous supporting character. The world is crueler than even a supporting character like me. Just wait and see. Xingxiu couldn't come to school due to illness. He was inevitably going to miss this year's college entrance exams too. 14. His classmates all felt sorry for him, visiting him in small groups on their own initiative, everyone but me. In the early stages of treatment, Xingxiu sat on the hospital bed holding Songjin's hand, beaming with joy. Go ahead and envy me. I've found a love more precious than life itself. This line became legendary for a time. Mutual friends cautiously asked me, are you really not going to visit? I'd just wave my textbook or test papers in the air. There are more important things than visiting the sick. Not that they could really say anything about it. They had just as many books to read and exams to prepare for as I did. Cruel, heartless. Xingxiu and I had that ambiguous relationship for years. Most people assumed we were a couple, yet he never bothered to clarify. But when Songjin entered his life, suddenly he couldn't explain things fast enough. Am I some kind of personal belonging to him? Does he think I'll come running whenever he snaps his fingers? His mistakes and illnesses are no excuse to drag me into this. Whenever Xinyan overheard those whispering behind her back, she'd give them a piece of her mind. Didn't Xingxiu find a love more precious than life itself? If they're so perfect together, why bother analyzing it coldly? I accidentally converted her from a casual shipper to a devoted fan. Over time, people stopped paying attention to me. Most people following this incident were just waiting to see how Songjin would react. From the very beginning, Songjin, now the center of scandalous rumors, started frequently taking leaves and arriving late. No need to ask. She'd inevitably respond with red-rimmed eyes, murmuring pitifully, 15. Xingxiu's in the hospital. I need to see him. Upon hearing this, Xinyan couldn't help rolling her eyes. Didn't you say it's just the early stage? No need for that over-the-top dying act. Harsh words, but music to my ears. But I wouldn't let her ramble on. Just flipped through more test papers for her to practice. Xinyan's rock-bottom grades showed no improvement throughout high school. Yet her recent mock exam scores jumped over 100 points when she got the test paper. Her expression mirrored the homeroom teacher's disbelief. She finally couldn't help but let out a whoop of joy. Calm down. Is this score real? Did I actually earn this? First time in my life I've scored this high without cheating. The homeroom teacher didn't press her about the cheating allegations either. With Xinyan's personality and family background, cheating would be utterly beneath her. Our homeroom teacher grinned at the class and said, look. Until the final moment of the college entrance exam, anything's possible. Go for it, boys and girls. Who says teenage years are wasted without romance? Cramming for exams can be just as thrilling. The whole class burst into laughter. Yeah, everyone felt tremendously motivated and inspired by the success. Xinyan became obsessed with studying. When she puts her mind to it, she only sleeps 3 hours a day. No more colored contacts, no more eyeliner, just washing my face with plain water. My skin's breaking out from late nights, but I can't even bother anymore, she said to me. This feeling of fulfillment is amazing. Like if I just push a little harder, I might actually grasp something real. My nose tingled as I let out a bitter chuckle. That's what it feels like to seize control of your own destiny, the opportunity I'd lost in my past life. Halfway through the semester, Songjin had accumulated far too many unexcused absences. The school could sympathize with Xingxiu's illness, but couldn't indefinitely tolerate his puppy love with Songjin. 16. This had severely damaged the school's reputation. They advised Songjin's parents to simply have her take a leave of absence. Songjin's parents had limited means. Supporting their child's education was no easy feat. In the end, their daughter dropped out of school just to become an unpaid caregiver at someone else's sickbed. They were heartbroken. What hurt them most was the attitude of Xing's parents toward them. It was clearly their own daughter who sacrificed her education for Xing Xiu. The Xing family simply looked down on them, as if their whole clan was trying to leech off the Shins. Could Xing Xiu and Songjin's relationship really remain unshaken under such circumstances? The whole world isn't going to make way for their dramatic love story. While building my own future, I'm waiting to see how their doomed romance plays out. Then, during a class break, Songjin came running to find me. She wanted me to visit Xing Xiu at the hospital. I'm not a doctor. What good would visiting do when I can't cure his cancer? Am I supposed to comfort him with years of neighborly affection when you're the love he values more than life itself? 17. Or tell me, what exactly should I say or do when I go there to satisfy both you and him? Songjin stood utterly speechless. Her eyes reddened as if I'd subjected her to unbearable humiliation, with Xing Xiu around. She could win without lifting a finger, but now they were standing outside a senior year classroom. Her notorious reputation made even standing at the doorway seem like a provocation. Xin Yan pushed through the crowd, shouting, "What are you doing? Staring at her won't help. Hit the books instead." The homeroom teacher trailing behind her scrutinized Songjin with a stern frown. "You're a freshman, right? What brings you to the senior year hallway?" Songjin replied timidly. "I'm here to see Ling Jing." The homeroom teacher wore a knowing smirk. Aren't you Xing Xiu's little girlfriend? Shouldn't you be keeping him company at the hospital right now?" Songjin's pitiful face flushed and paled in rapid succession. The entire school knew about their earth-shattering, teenage life-or-death romance. What's there for her to deny? I wanted to ask Ling Jing to visit Xing Xiu at the hospital, but the homeroom teacher said, "Xing Xiu is also my student. And I've been keeping tabs on his condition. With his recent chemotherapy, he's in terrible pain and has lost all his hair. In this state, would our visit really be appropriate?" Songjin was trying to emotionally manipulate people. The teacher effortlessly deflected it with minimal effort. "I just found it ridiculous. Why did she think others were too stupid to see through her little tricks? Did you get too much satisfaction from Xing Xiu?" Seeing her relentless persistence, Xin Yan spoke up. "Class advisor, how about we visit Xing Xiu as student representatives this afternoon?" God knows what the teacher was thinking. He agreed without hesitation. Songjin's eyes widened in disbelief. Clearly, this outcome caught everyone off guard. Most people just want front row seats to the drama. Humph, my life was never meant to be entertainment. They can be the audience, but I reserve the right to walk off stage. But since Song's so fond of performing, let her put on her little show. Xing Xiu's condition has taken a bad turn. Dark circles hollowed his eyes. His cheeks were sunken. He'd wasted away to a walking skeleton. 18. Xin Yan looked at him like she'd seen a ghost. "I've seen him like this in a past life. Back then, my heart was breaking." Turning away, I couldn't hold back the tears. Now, Xing Xiu lies listlessly in bed, a woolen cap covering his thinning hair. His condition still causes occasional dizziness and vomiting. Xing's mother was cleaning up his vomit. The ward reeked of a nauseating stench. Xin Yan couldn't take it anymore and rushed to the restroom. Hearing the noise, Mom Xing started cursing without even turning around. "You little bitch Songjin, where the hell did you?" The homeroom teacher and I turned to look, but Songjin had already vanished. Mom Xing froze on the spot. His movements became visibly flustered, especially after spotting me. "Stay calm, it's you." Xing Xiu struggled to sit up upon hearing my name. His mother moved to support him, but he shook her off. He wordlessly struggled to sit up. When he saw me, a deliberate smile surfaced on his pallid, sickly face. He was acting too, playing the part of a normal Xing Xiu. He's such a proud man. How could he possibly want to see me now and let his pride be trampled? I heard Xing's mother sniffle before speaking to him. "Xing Xiu, are you alright? Songjin sent us to check on you, hoping to give you some encouragement. The college entrance exams are coming up. We really hope you recover soon so we can face this make-or-break challenge together." Even the simplest, most sincere words felt like cruel mockery to Xing Xiu in his current state. The homeroom teacher and Xing's mother stepped aside to talk privately. A storm of emotion swirled in Xing Xiu's eyes. "Did Songjin send you?" "Yes, she said you missed seeing your teachers and classmates. I should tell him about Songjin's thoughtful little arrangement." Xing Xiu violently shoved aside the bedside table before collapsing back onto the hospital bed, his body convulsing uncontrollably. The homeroom teacher urgently summoned doctors and nurses. Behind the ward's glass door, Xing's mother sobbed hysterically while the teacher let out a heavy sigh. I gave Xing's mother a comforting pat on the shoulder and handed her a tissue packet. Aunt Xing, Xingxiu is so strong, he'll definitely pull through for Songjin's sake. Mrs. Xing looked up, her face a picture of heartbreak. Songjian and Xingxiu broke up. When you think about it, it was actually quite straightforward. 19. Just like their love that sprang from nowhere. 20. Quick to ignite, quicker to fade. Through the long days of caregiving, Songjian had lost sight of love's true form. She was still just a student, after all. She had to constantly take leave from work, playing nursemaid to Xingxiu in the hospital, all the while enduring Xing's mother's curses, her own parents' complaints, and even criticism from teachers and classmates at school. She couldn't take it anymore. It's not like I gave you leukemia. Why does everyone act like this is my fault? Xingxiu looked at her as if she were a stranger. Then why did you send Lin Jing to see me? Songjin froze for a moment before retorting defiantly, you grew up together. How could I not know you have feelings for her too? Xingxiu froze in shock. After all these years together day and night, his feelings for me were truly special. But ever since Songjin appeared, he became completely captivated by her. Songjin was like a wild rose blooming in untamed wilderness, radiating far more vitality than a rule-following bookworm like me. Poverty never constrained Songjin, it only made her authenticity shine brighter. Their first meeting happened when a child stumbled before a rich kid's car on the street. It was Songjin who rushed forward, shielding the child while standing her ground against the entitled heir. Back then, Songjin radiated courage and resilience, glowing with an indomitable spirit. Xingxiu found himself utterly captivated. That's why he fell for Songjin, for her. He'd defy his family and quarrel with his parents. Why couldn't Songjin love him with equal conviction? How could she say she's tired after just a few months? Songjin, even if you pity me, this isn't the time to say. Songjin interrupted Xingxiu. I'm miserable enough already. Why should I pity you? I'm not some emotionless statue. To continue her education and escape public scrutiny, Songjin abruptly transferred to a school in another city. Her parents were migrant workers anyway. One city was as good as another for making a living. 21. The Song family left without even a word to the Xings. The Xings would later go searching for Songjin. Songjin's homeroom teacher relayed that she had broken up with Xingxiu, and asked them not to bother her anymore. Xing's parents were absolutely furious, but what right did they have to blame Songjin? Frankly speaking, this teenage romance seemed more like Xingxiu holding Songjin back. Many people shared this view, including Songjin's homeroom teacher. The passionate life-or-death romance of youth ultimately withered away within months. Both teachers and students at school were preoccupied. They were consumed by their own lives, heard about it, just laughed it off. My parents got wind of this. They just sighed behind my back and left it at that. Humph. What can a mere few months of puppy love possibly withstand in the face of life and death? Only in my past life was I foolish enough to believe Xingxiu and I were childhood sweethearts of over a decade, making me reluctant to abandon him. I went through hell and back with Xingxiu once. In the end, the moment Songjin appeared, all our feelings turned to ashes. The favored ones always take love for granted. I've nursed the critically ill Xingxiu. The ordeal was unbearable both mentally and physically. That's why I knew all along the teenage Songjin would never last. But I just had to watch their love get crushed to pieces by reality. I also wanted to see Xingxiu's miserable state, hovering between life and death. Xingxiu didn't disappoint me. As expected, he plunged headlong into reminiscing about Songjin. 22. Xing's parents went to great lengths to reignite his will to live and convince him to continue treatment. I stopped asking about Xingxiu and Songjin's affairs. With Jiang Li's help, my science grades improved steadily, finally making up for my previous weaknesses. That June, I walked into the Gaokao examination hall. While waiting for the results, Xinyan and I embarked on a whirlwind tour, hitting 3 cities in 7 days. While marveling at our country's magnificent landscapes, I stumbled upon an unexpected delight. The college entrance exam results came out soon after. I got accepted into the prestigious 211 university I'd always dreamed of. Xinyan managed to get into a second-tier university through last-minute efforts. This result might seem insignificant to others, but for Xinyan's parents, it was earth-shattering good news. Xinyan turned down the study abroad plan, telling her parents she'd retake the exams to get into the same university as me next year. Her parents fully supported her decision. It wasn't until my freshman year began that I heard about Xingxiu again from Xinyan. He's recovered and came back to repeat the year, but whether it's from chemo or heartbreak, his grades have really taken a nosedive. 23. Oh, really? Sensing my disinterest, Xinyan casually probed for some gossip. How's it going with Jiang Li? I chuckled softly as Jiang Li across the street had already bought me bubble tea. He's still chasing after me, a teacher-student romance with an age gap, ew. So forbidden and unconventional, Xinyan is forever shipping me and her favorite CP. Jiangli's university was in the same city as mine. Early in freshman year, he started visiting often, taking me to meals, exploring this ancient capital, soaking in all its cultural flavors. I've lived 2 lifetimes after all, brief though they've been. The subtle affections between grown men and women are quite transparent. Jiangli sported a neat, close-cropped haircut, tall, handsome, and considerate to a fault, though he insists on treating me like a child, occasionally tapping my forehead. When he confessed to me, I pondered for ages but still couldn't figure out when he'd started liking me. Jiangli held my hand as we strolled down the tree-lined campus avenue, autumn leaves crunching beneath our feet. Actually, we met as kids. I'm 2 years older, we lived in the same staff housing complex. I used to play Eagle Catches Chicks with your kindergarten group. Then my family moved away when I started elementary school. I vaguely remember such an older brother, but that feels like ancient history now. I remember many families moving out of our neighborhood. Xingxiu was the only one I was really close to. We had the strongest bond. I've always known about you. When I heard your family needed a tutor, I volunteered immediately, but you didn't recognize me and kept calling me teacher this and teacher that. No wonder you asked me to call you brother. Jiangli naturally pulled me into a hug, patting my hand as he said. I smiled. Now we're not mismatched in seniority anymore. We could almost pass as childhood sweethearts. Childhood sweethearts. Who isn't childhood sweethearts with someone these days? 24. Yeah, coming home for Lunar New Year during freshman year. Jiangli paid us a New Year's visit right after the holiday began. My parents welcomed him in with smiles, then exchanged knowing glances. A silent understanding of mutual satisfaction. I asked Jiangli, what brings you here? Jiangli scratched his head. New Year's greetings. And to check on you. The corners of my mouth curled into a smile. Jiangli added, there's something I'd like to discuss with you both. What is it? Well, about parental arrangements. Just as I was about to tease Jiangli, the doorbell rang. My dad opened the door with a peculiar expression. The next moment, Xingxiu walked in. He happened to see me peeling an orange for Jiangli. His parents behind him saw it too. The expressions on that family of 3 were quite a sight. I suspect they came to my place mainly to seek reconciliation. So I made up an excuse and left with Jiangli. As my father closed the door, he deliberately said something to the Xing family inside. Jiangli is Lin Jing's boyfriend, who came all the way to visit us during the New Year holidays. Jiangli walked faster than me. Couldn't tell if he heard it or not. With most places packed during the holidays, Jiangli and I headed to Xinyan's villa instead. Xinyan had the entire floor to herself. No matter how many guests visited, she'd retreat upstairs claiming to study, and nobody dared disturb her. Her crescent moon eyes never left Jiangli, sparkling with amusement. So you're Professor Jiang. After barely exchanging 2 sentences, Jiangli stepped out to the balcony for some air. I can tell. He's practically steaming, Xinyan whispered, miles better than Xingxiu. Honestly, I mentioned Xingxiu's family coming over to my place. Xinyan sneered. Back when he fell for someone else, he claimed you were just neighbors. Now you're not even that. What's he doing at your place? Like I care what he's after. Xingxiu could only hurt me because I used to love him. I still wish he were dead. Pity the illness didn't finish him off. Xinyan continued, ever since Xingxiu came back. He's been acting really odd. He couldn't keep up with schoolwork anymore and just wanted to go into business with his dad. Even the homeroom teacher tried talking him out of it several times. With his academic foundation, he clearly had good chances of getting into a top-tier university. A sudden thought occurred to me. That suspicion was soon confirmed. 25. After Jiangli walked me home, I unexpectedly ran into Xingxiu in the hallway. Xingxiu fixed me with an intense stare. Calm down. You're back too, aren't you? Xingxiu had truly returned. That look in his eyes was both familiar and alien, like a weathered desert traveler yearning for an oasis. I steadied myself. This is my doorstep. What's wrong with me coming home? Xingxiu gave a wistful smile. Calm down. I've studied micro-expressions. You can't fool me. We know each other too well. Xingxiu grabbed my arm. Calm down. I remember everything now. In this lifetime, Songjin actually abandoned me. I've suffered the consequences of my own ingratitude. Stay calm. The one person I can never let go is actually you. I'm absolutely terrified. How could I not be? That's the murderer who pushed me off the building in my past life. Seizing the chance, I broke free and sprinted desperately toward my doorstep. The door swung open instantly, flooding the area with warm household light. Turned out my mom had heard the commotion and come out. Xingxiu, what are you trying to do? I dodged to the side. My father came out too. Today we've made it perfectly clear to your parents, there's absolutely no future between you and Lingjing. Why are you still here? Xingqiu said nothing, just gazed at me with heartrending sorrow. I couldn't bear to look at him anymore. Xingqiu left. His parents had dragged him away by force. My father cast aside years of friendship and issued a harsh ultimatum: if Xingqiu dares set foot in our neighborhood again, I'll have him arrested on the spot. After all the effort Xing's parents put into getting him back, they'd never risk tarnishing his record. He even gave Xingqiu a few hard smacks right in front of my parents to vent his anger. Choose Little Tiger bought for secure document protection and book searching, reliable, stable, and hassle-free. My dad mercilessly told them to get lost. 26. I reckon Xingqiu must have returned last year while still undergoing treatment, but why would he come back? After his return, why didn't he go straight to find Songzhen? If he hates me so much for supposedly causing Songzhen's death, why does he still call me the one he can't let go of? No amount of unanswered questions could outweigh my fear of him. I've finally built a new life, found new love, and got a fresh start. If he won't let me go, am I going to lose everything? No, I absolutely refuse. 27. Xingqiu kept texting me, asking to meet up and talk. What's left for us to discuss? Xingqiu seemed to read my mind. What I owe you, I'll repay eventually. I glanced at it, still no reply. My life, how could he ever repay that? Late at night, in that hazy state between sleep and wakefulness, I felt transported back to my past life. It was a meticulously chosen Western restaurant where Xingqiu, without warning, pulled out a ring, knelt on one knee, and proposed to me in front of everyone. That was the outcome I'd been desperately waiting for all these years. How could I possibly say no? After accepting Xingqiu's proposal, I cried so hard my makeup ran, forcing me to fix it in the restroom, only to accidentally overhear Xingqiu's conversation with someone else. Among the guests was a renowned physician recently recruited from abroad by Xingqiu's hospital. Xingqiu was vying for a spot in a hospital project and needed this doctor's endorsement. That's why he chose this restaurant frequented by the doctor to stage his marriage proposal, all to impress upon the physician that Xingqiu was a responsible and level-headed man. The dream I've waited for all these years, it's finally come true. Everything was driven by self-interest. Does Xingqiu really love me? In my past life, I was just fooling myself. At least he's willing to marry me and walk with me into the next chapter of life. But now, I'm with Jiangli. The love I receive now is truly different from the one-sided devotion of my past life. I know what true mutual love really means. 28. I agreed to meet Xingqiu. He wants redemption, and I'm giving him the chance, but on one condition: it has to be in another city. I've got cousins in that city who'll be shadowing us discreetly. They won't let me get shortchanged. It was one of those neon-lit nightclubs buzzing with energy. The long-lost Songzhen wore a skimpy mini dress, moving to the sultry beats of a K-pop routine on the dance floor. The lace trim of her lingerie peeked through with every move, drawing wolf whistles and cheers from the men around. After her performance, she flitted across the venue like a butterfly before settling onto the lap of a rich heir in the VIP booth. The wealthy playboy became her sugar daddy. She'd dropped out of school and quit selling vegetables. Now she's a bona fide kept woman, a pampered little rose. Xingqiu watched the scene with cold detachment. He recognized that spoiled rich kid, the same one who'd quarreled with Songzhen on the street before. Songzhen's radiant charm didn't just captivate Xingqiu, it ensnared that wealthy playboy too. Perhaps Songzhen's love for Xingqiu had been genuine at first. When exactly did it turn fake? I really wouldn't know. Xingqiu and I know each other far too well enough that I know exactly what to do. Could easily make him feel like being pierced by 1,000 arrows. Having lived 2 lifetimes, Xingqiu still couldn't keep his composure. He stepped forward with a liquor bottle in hand, yet the bottle struck Songzhen's face. 29. Before the police took Xingqiu away, he said to me, in our past life, Songzhen didn't commit suicide because of depression. She was pregnant and needed someone to be the father of her child. When the rich kid found out, he forced her to take the pills and staged the suicide scene. By the time I learned the truth, it was too late. I thought in this life we could start over, but you came back too. You fear me, and you hate me. I can see it in your eyes. No matter what happens in this lifetime, there's no future for us. Calm down. The debt I owe you, I'll repay with the rest of my life. I'm sorry. Turns out Xingqiu wasn't as clever as I'd imagined. As a psychiatrist, he actually fell for Songzhen's act so easily. I really thought he truly loved Songzhen. That's why he never minded her past or how she disappeared without a word back then. Never expected it to turn out like this. When it comes down to it, that unattainable little rose from our youth can be dangerously alluring. Tragically, Songzhen was disfigured. The rich kid has money, but that doesn't mean he's willing to pay for Songzhen's treatment. Song's parents are dead set on making Xingqiu serve time. Very well, They never deserved a bright future to begin with. Mr. and Mrs. Xing's hair turned white overnight, but it wasn't long before they got divorced, my dad said. Old Xing has another family outside, with a child already 7 or 8 years old. The only reason we didn't divorce was because we valued Xingxiu so much, and just when Xingxiu finally recovered, he had to go and do something this stupid. My mom also said. Xing's mother was no saint either. To secure her future, she hired a young maid from the countryside to care for Xingxiu, who ended up pregnant. After Xingxiu recovered and left the hospital, his mother rushed back to force the maid into an abortion. After Xingxiu got arrested, the maid's impoverished family caused a scene at our old neighborhood, and that's how the scandal blew up. In my past life as Xingxiu's fiancé, I'd been completely in the dark about all this. No wonder Xingxiu lashed out at Songzhen with such extreme, desperate fury. It must have been sheer despair that led to this. His family had always been plagued by too many unspeakable truths. Given a second chance at life, Xingxiu lost both the career he took pride in and the fame that once came effortlessly. Not only did his chronic illness relapse, but he also had to deal with that absurd, laughable mess of a family. How did he endure that period of cancer treatment? Was it because of the maid's unborn child? No amount of personal struggles can justify Xingxiu's despicable character. In this lifetime, with me and Songzhen gone from his sickbed, there's still that replacement made by his side. Every single one could be his pawn. Humph, Xingxiu isn't worthy of my love. He's even less deserving of loving me. 30. Another 3 years had passed. I was about to graduate as a senior, while Jiangli had already graduated and landed a job at a major tech company in Beijing. Jiangli called to check in with me. I've rented a place for us near your grad school. The neighborhood's full of charming hutongs and historic sites. You'll have the whole area to explore. My heart swelled with warmth. From studies to work, even down to food and fun, he's thought of everything for me. Jiangli, why are you so good to me? Jiangli chuckled wryly. You've been good to me too. Always giving me new scarves and gloves every year. Even Xinyan chimed in. Compared to how he used to be all take and no give, Jiangli's practically worshipping you now. Then they added with a tinge of jealousy. Even my boyfriend can't do that. Ouch, calm down. I want new scarves and gloves too. I need to go back to my hometown to get some materials for the postgraduate entrance exam. I got news about Xingxiu from my parents. He passed away. The leukemia had relapsed. Not even his closest family was by his side this time. I've been given a fresh start in life, reborn only to face second and third rounds of brutal chemotherapy, his reputation ruined, betrayed by his beloved and abandoned by both parents. What a waste to die now. Humph, such a pity. If only his suffering could have been worse. 31. Xingxiu's suicide note took over half a year to finally reach my family from his mother's hands. My parents believe that a dying man's words are truly sincere. I examined the envelope of the suicide note. It bore signs of having been opened and resealed. After repeating a year, I ended up at a university and major that weren't my first choice. I'm so worthless. I smiled and accepted it right in front of them, went downstairs and tossed it into the nearest trash can. Xinyan was waiting at the neighborhood gate in her new car, ready to take me to Haidaleo for hot pot. Chill. I kinda want to see that cute waiter do the subject 3 dance later. Do you think Brother Jiangli would mind? I'm in a great mood. Not at all. Here's something to make you even happier. Dinner's on me tonight. Xinyan gasped in amazement. What's the special occasion today? Hold your horses. Did you win the lottery? I said with a laugh. A lifelong dream finally came true. The best is yet to come. 32. After rebirth, I have 2 modest goals. 1. Wait for Xingxiu to die. 2. Make sure he dies far away. Only after all these years can such an ending be called truly fulfilling. Beyond the window, sunshine bathed the world in warmth while birds sang amidst fragrant blossoms. In this life, I'm blessed with family, cherished friends, and a beloved partner. Together with them, I'll embark on life's next grand adventure. Story 2. Xinyansi grew up together with my elder sister as childhood sweethearts. Later, when my family fell from grace, he proposed to marry me instead. Everyone said that I was just a substitute for my deceased elder sister. After hearing it so many times, I really started to believe it myself, until he died trying to save me. In this new life, I heard the remarks about me being a substitute again, but this time, along with those remarks, there was another voice as well. Spreading rumors is easy, but refuting them takes so much effort. I've said it 800 times that I've never liked Wenbei at all. I'm already annoyed that I can't catch up with my wife, and now you guys are causing trouble. It's been a year since we got married. When will my wife be willing to scold me a few more times? Me, I never knew that Xinyansi could be so talkative. I was standing in the banquet hall, holding his arm, in one ear, there were the idle gossip and whispers from the people around that drifted in from time to time. In the other ear, there was all of Shinyensi's endless muttering. What else do I need to do to clarify this? Every time someone asks me who I really like, I say it's Wen-nan. We're not twins, we don't look alike at all. How could she be a substitute? I wonder which genius came up with this rumor. Have they read too many romance novels? If they have the guts, they should come and say it to my face. Ugh, I'm really fed up. I already felt guilty about taking advantage of the Wen family's misfortune to get Wen-nan to marry me. Normally, I don't even dare to talk to her too much, for fear that she'll be annoyed with me and want to divorce me, but these people are still secretly causing trouble for me. I really want to acquire all of them. I was still immersed in the confusion of suddenly being able to hear Shinyensi's inner thoughts, but when I heard this sentence, I couldn't help it and looked at him in shock. Wait, the reason he's been so cold and distant towards me usually is that he doesn't dare to talk to me too much. I really thought it was because he was afraid that if I talked too much, I wouldn't be like my elder sister anymore. I accidentally stared at him a bit absent-mindedly. Shinyensi's inner muttering suddenly stopped. My wife is looking at me. Isn't she angry? Forget about the acquisition. I might as well just kill them all. He slightly tilted his head and looked at me. He still had that cold and distant expression. Are you tired? If you don't want to stay, we can go back first. I let out an ah and nodded subconsciously. Shinyensi immediately perfunctorily said a few words to the people beside him who were trying to curry favor. Then he made an excuse and took me away. In the car on the way home, Shinyensi was resting with his eyes closed. I propped my head up and looked outside the car, still feeling that everything was not real. I opened my eyes this morning and found that I had been reborn. I was reborn just 1 year after I married Shinyensi, in my previous life. On the day of our 3rd wedding anniversary, we were framed and set up. Shinyensi took 2 bullets in order to save me. He dragged his injured body and hid me in a crevice, while he went alone to lead away those kidnappers. And not long before that, he had just proposed a divorce to me. Going further back, we hadn't seen each other for almost a year. Shinyensi risked his life, but I still didn't survive either. I was found by the kidnappers and taken to the side of Shinyensi's body. In the end, I died with him. When I just woke up this morning, I thought I had just had a very long dream. However, the pain of being on the verge of death was still imprinted in my soul. It made it impossible for me to deceive myself no matter what, so I could only accept this fact that I had been reborn. I spent a whole day digesting the news of my rebirth, and in the evening, I was shocked by Shinyensi's inner thoughts again, thinking of the words I heard at the banquet just now. I couldn't help but turn my gaze to Shinyensi. I remember that in the first 2 years of our marriage in my previous life, our relationship was actually not bad. Although we weren't particularly close, we also weren't as incompatible as the outside world rumored, to put it bluntly, just as Shinyensi said in his inner thoughts. He rarely talked to me, but he would quietly do some things for me behind the scenes. But at that time, I had heard too many rumors about being a substitute, so in my heart, I defaulted that everything he did was to make up for the regrets of Wenbei. When my family had an accident back then, I was the only one who survived. It was Shinyensi who helped me when I was at my most helpless, so I decided to repay him, no matter what he wanted. I once tried to imitate Wenbei's words and deeds and deliberately learned her dressing style. Shinyensi noticed and seriously stopped me. He said, I don't like Wenbei, just be Wen-nan. So I stopped imitating Wenbei and just showed a kind of docile obedience towards Shinyensi. But the more docile and obedient I was, the more obscure and difficult to discern his gaze became when he looked at me. Later, he appeared in front of me less and less often, until I didn't see him for a year. And finally he proposed a divorce to me. People really see things very differently from different perspectives. In my previous life, I always thought that he had come to his senses, got tired of me, and decided to stay away from me because he knew that I could never become Wenbei after all. But now it seems that things are not so simple, and those robbers, I must solve them as early as possible in this life. For a moment, all kinds of messy information filled my mind. Before I could figure anything out, Shinyensi's inner thoughts forcefully interrupted again. Why has Nan been staring at me? Is there something on my face? I should have listened to the styling team and made myself look more refined tonight. What if I'm so ugly that I scare her? No, I'd better hide. Next time, I'll definitely not be too lazy and will take the trouble to do my styling properly. As soon as his words fell, I watched as he turned his head to the other side. If I couldn't hear his inner thoughts, I would definitely think that he was disgusted with me. I was both angry and amused. I originally didn't want to pay attention to him, but by chance, I glanced and saw that he was rubbing his fingers. I suddenly remembered that in my previous life, after he stuffed me into the crevice to hide, he quickly bent down and kissed me. I was so tired and scared at that time that I was slow to respond to his comforting kiss for a long time. However, because of our position, I happened to be able to see his hand in front of him, which seemed to be rubbing his fingers unconsciously. This seemed to be a little gesture he would do when he was nervous. Thinking of the way he forced a smile at me with blood all over his body in my previous life, my heart suddenly softened. I don't know why, but the thought of ignoring him that I originally had just couldn't hold up anymore. I sighed resignedly in my heart. After a little thought, I suddenly said, "Shinyensi, look at me." Shinyensi's body visibly stiffened for a moment. He slowly turned his head, and his delicate face was full of coldness and stiffness that kept people at a distance. But now when I look at him, I always feel that there seems to be an imperceptible tension hidden under his expressionless face. His mental activities also confirmed my feeling. My goodness, did Nan just order me? I haven't heard her speak to me in this tone since we were in university. I really want to cry. What should I do? Will Nan believe me if I say that the wind got into my eyes? No, why did she suddenly call me like this? Isn't she thinking of doing something stupid? Or is she going to divorce me? When Shinyensi thought of the last part, I clearly saw his pupils contract. I couldn't help but chuckle. I really didn't expect that Shinyensi had so many thoughts in his heart. It was really unexpected, and it was as if I was just starting to get to know him again. Shinyensi didn't say anything and just kept looking at me quietly. I ignored those noisy and anxious thoughts in his heart, followed my memories, and slowly said word by word, "Shinyensi, what's the point of you paying to keep a styling team?" I casually found an excuse and started trying to regain the feeling of being Nan. Don't you remember when President Chen was seized upon by his opponent regarding his dressing issue and was said to be disrespectful to the Cooperative Party? My tone wasn't very polite, and these were words that a gentle and polite person like Wenbei would definitely not say. Didn't I tell you that when you're out, your image is the image of the company? Don't think I didn't notice how perfunctory you were today. I watched as Shinyensi couldn't help it. His eyes slowly widened, and his body involuntarily sat up a little straighter. I curled the corners of my mouth, and there was an indescribable sense of relief in my heart. I haven't been Nan for a long time, but it feels really good to be Nan again. Shinyensi was so shocked that even his inner thoughts went silent. I didn't care either. I crossed my arms, casually leaned back on the chair, and raised my eyebrows to look at him. "You should reflect on this situation when you go back today, and I'm tired. You'd better take good care of me tonight." I saw that Shinyensi's expression had completely turned into a daze. He was looking at me as if he had been stunned. Just then, the driver drove the car to the doorstep. I opened the car door. Before getting out, I suddenly turned around and squinted my eyes at him with a smile. "If you don't take good care of me, I'll beat you to death tomorrow." After saying that, I turned around and got out of the car without hesitation. I had just taken 2 steps when there was a thud sound from behind. And then came Shinyensi's exclamation, "Goodness, where have you taken me? Is this heaven?" After I entered the house, I first went to remove my makeup and change my clothes. When I went back to the living room again, Shinyensi was still standing at the door. He was fumbling with his tie, not knowing whether to untie it or not, with his eyes slightly lowered. Just looking at his appearance, it seemed as if he was pondering some big business deal worth billions. He had a kind of serious and mature charm, if you just looked at his appearance. "What's wrong with Nan today? What does she want me to do? It doesn't matter if she beats me to death. But it's been more than a year since the Wen family's accident, and this is the first time I've seen her so relaxed like today. If I spoil her mood because of me, I might as well just end my own life. No, even if I die, I have to find the source of that substitute rumor and die with him." I stood in the middle of the living room, listening to Shinyensi's inner thoughts with great interest. It was interesting, but I was also afraid that if he kept thinking like this, he would really end his own life with the tie. So after listening for a while, I still walked over. "What's wrong? Is the tie sticky? You've been trying to untie it for 20 minutes. I deliberately lightened my steps, and Shinyensi was indeed so scared that his whole body stiffened. He almost reflexively tore off the tie. Then he started hanging up his clothes as if nothing had happened and said indifferently, "I'm thinking about something." I just watched him pretend. It wasn't until there were nervous voices in his heart that I hooked the corners of my mouth with a bit of malicious pleasure. "I'm hungry. Can you make me something to eat? I'll call someone to deliver it." As he said that, he was about to pick up his phone. I quickly stopped him. "It's not that troublesome. You can just cook me a bowl of noodles." I curved my eyebrows and eyes. "Of course, if it tastes too bad, you don't have to come back to the room tonight." After saying that, regardless of Shinyensi's slightly stunned gaze, I turned around and went back upstairs. I stood at the door of the study, hesitated for a moment, and then pushed the door open. In my previous life, I always regarded myself as an outsider and cautiously and restrainedly maintained a distance from Shinyansi. Even though Shinyansi had said that in this house, there was no place I couldn't go and nothing I couldn't touch, but I still stubbornly stuck to my bottom line during the 3 years of our married life. I only used things that I bought with my own money, and I didn't enter any room on the second floor except the bedroom, especially a place with strong privacy like the study. I wouldn't even take an extra look at it. There was only one time when I entered his study, and then I saw. After a little thought, I took out a pink diary from a pile of thick reference books according to my memory. This was Wenbei's diary. In my previous life, I firmly believed in that substitute rumor because I accidentally saw this diary, a man keeping the diary of another deceased woman. It's really hard not to associate it with feelings, but now I think things might not be so simple, because at the last moment of my previous life before I died, I vaguely seemed to hear those kidnappers mention words like that little girl from the Wen family and where is she hidden. I'm sure that that little girl from the Wen family didn't refer to me. Could it be that Wenbei's death wasn't an accident? I stared at the diary in my hand, a bit lost in thought. In fact, as soon as I found out that I could hear Shinyansi's inner thoughts and confirmed that he really didn't like Wenbei, I thought of this diary. If Shinyansi didn't like Wenbei, then it was really strange for him to keep Wenbei's diary. I had an intuition that there might be something else recorded in this diary. Just as I was still hesitating whether to try to unlock the password, suddenly, there were footsteps in the corridor outside the study. Almost instinctively, I stuffed the diary back in its place and randomly took out a book and opened a page. Shinyansi walked to the door and knocked. Still in that flat tone, "The noodles are ready, come and eat." I casually hummed, and endured my guilty conscience as I stuffed the book away casually. I was just about to say something to cover up my guilty conscience, but the moment I turned my head, I accidentally met Shinyansi's eyes. His gaze was as calm and peaceful as ever. Looking deeper, it seemed to contain infinite tolerance. Just as he said, in this house, there was no place I couldn't go and nothing I couldn't touch. The heart that had just sunk seemed to be pulled up again by a gentle gravitational force. It was light and a bit unreal. Even more amazingly, I couldn't hear Shinyansi's inner thoughts at all now. He wasn't thinking about anything. Everything he showed was the most real thought in his heart. My shoulders suddenly relaxed. I realized again that Shinyansi could be trusted. Since that's the case, it's better to be more straightforward. I walked up to Shinyansi, smiled at him, and said directly, "Let's eat. After that, we can have a chat." As soon as I finished speaking, Shinyansi's heart instantly exploded. Have a chat? Chat about what? Divorce. I knew there was something wrong with Wen Nan being so abnormal today. What should I do if my wife wants to divorce me? I don't want to live anymore. Should I work overtime tonight? And also tomorrow? Maybe I should just live in the company for this month. Or even for the whole half year. No divorce. No divorce. Heavenly Emperor and Guanyin Bodhisattva, please tell this disciple how to stop my wife from divorcing me. I was suddenly bombarded by Shinyansi's inner thoughts. When I finally listened clearly, I felt rather amused and frustrated at the same time. What are you standing there for? Let's go. I simply reached out and grabbed his wrist, pulling him downstairs. I'll talk to you about Wenbei after dinner. Don't think too much. The moment I grabbed his wrist, Shinyansi's inner thoughts abruptly stopped. After that, he showed an unusual docility throughout the whole process. When I mentioned Wenbei, he just softly responded with an The noodles cooked by Shinyansi unexpectedly tasted quite good. I didn't hold back and gave him a lot of praise. I praised him so much that while he was washing the dishes, he was thinking about not asking the auntie to come anymore and that he would take care of all the household chores. After Shinyansi finished tidying up, he sat upright on the single sofa next to me. I looked at him, still trying to organize my words on how to start, but he suddenly said, "I have never liked Wenbei, and I didn't treat you as a substitute for her." I paused for a moment, a bit surprised that he would take the initiative to bring up this matter. In my previous life, except for the time when he stopped me from imitating Wenbei's words and deeds, we had never openly discussed this issue. Even during the 3 years of our marriage, the number of our serious conversations could be counted on 2 hands. It was precisely because of this that those people had the opportunity to take advantage of the situation and deceive me out. After a moment of contemplation, I was even more certain that the most pressing matter was to solve the problem of the lack of information communication between Shinyansi and me. Without hesitation, I came straight to the point and said, "There's something I want to apologize to you for." Shinyansi immediately frowned. Nan is apologizing to me. Could it be that she's in some kind of trouble? I just saw Wenbei's diary in your study. I sped up my words to put an end to Shinyansi's inner drama in advance. Sure enough, I saw a flash of shock on his face. I pursed my lips. and in Shinyensi's gradually darkening gaze, I slowly voiced out the question in my heart, Shinyensi, since you said you've never liked Wenbei, why do you still keep her diary? The living room became extremely quiet. I slowed down my breathing and focused all my attention on Shinyensi's inner thoughts. Did Nan see that diary? Should I tell her now? Or find an excuse to get through this? When I heard the word excuse, I squinted my eyes slightly. However, Shinyensi quickly thought again. Telling her about this might put her in danger, but I don't want to lie to her either. Shinyensi lowered his head slightly. His hair blocked part of his sight, and I couldn't see his expression clearly. However, listening to his inner words, I confirmed my speculation. There was something wrong with Wenbei's death. I pursed my lips, and in an instant, I felt the emotions in my heart surging as if they were about to explode. Shinyensi was still silent. I forcefully suppressed the sour feeling in my heart and said with a slight tremor in my voice, Shinyensi, I don't have any other family members besides you. Please don't lie to me. Okay. Shinyensi suddenly raised his head and looked at me as if he couldn't believe what I said. I myself couldn't tell how much sincerity and how much use there was in these words, but I could hear the passionate and surging feelings in Shinyensi's heart. This made me not even dare to look into his eyes too much. After a while, Shinyensi stood up and said, come to the study with me. In the study, Shinyensi took out Wenbei's diary and handed it to me. The password is 1121, you'll understand after reading the content. I followed Shinyensi's words and opened the diary. My hands were shaking when I entered the password. Wenbei's diary was indeed a record of her love affairs. She fell in love with someone in university and then started dating him. However, the name of this person never appeared. I flipped through the pages one by one. The earlier part was just some ordinary feelings about being in love. However, when I read further, I couldn't help but frown. He seems a bit strange recently. Is he facing some trouble? I asked him, and he said he was in a bad mood and asked me to go on a trip with him to relax. This is our first trip together, and I'm so looking forward to it. Except for these two records with a long interval, there was only a photo of a man's back on the following pages. I looked at the back of the man in the photo and felt a bit familiar, but I couldn't remember who he was for a moment. Other than that, there was nothing else recorded in this diary. I looked at Shinyensi in a daze. Shinyensi pursed his lips, as if organizing his words. A few months before Wenbei's accident, she attended my birthday party. We hadn't been in touch for a long time before that, but that time, she suddenly started reminiscing with me about a research trip we had in junior high school in City Z. Shinyensi walked next to me and took the diary from my hand. She was called away after saying just a few words and left early soon after. I didn't realize that something was strange about her until after her accident. I'm sorry, if I had noticed it earlier, I might have been able to help her. Shinyensi looked at me with a guilty expression. I shook my head and said softly, it's not your fault. So you went to City Z? Yeah, she mentioned twice that the hotel she stayed in at that time was very comfortable, so I took a business trip there. I got the diary at the front desk, and the password was also told to me by the front desk staff. Shinyensi looked at the page where Wenbei pasted the photo, and after a moment of contemplation, he said, I heard from the front desk that she came with a man that day and stayed for about a week. The diary was found in the corner of the bathroom. When they found the diary, there was an inner page attached to it, written with my name and 4 digits using an eyebrow pencil, and it also said not to make a fuss and wait for me to come and pick it up. You know, those hotels always take the requests of guests like us very seriously, so they kept that diary until I went to inquire and then gave it to me. The more I listened, the tighter my frown became. Wenbei's behavior was really strange. I looked at the man in the photo and pointed at him. Do you know him? Yes, I do. His name is Chu Mulin. I was stunned for a moment, and then I suddenly understood. No wonder he looked familiar to me. This person was quite a famous figure in our circle. He was originally an illegitimate son of the Chu family. Later, he was recognized back into the family, but a few years ago, he suddenly announced that he was breaking away from the Chu family. After that, he started his own business and had been on the rise ever since. Now, he has reached a level where he can completely compete with the Chu family. People privately joke that he is the male protagonist of a contemporary cool story novel. I didn't expect that Wenbei's boyfriend was actually him. Shinyensi tore off the photo of the man from the notebook and held it at an angle towards the light. He pointed it out to me, and then I noticed that there were several scratches on the photo. Shinyensi explained, this is actually a code we set when we participated in a competition at school. These scratches are abbreviations of 2 English words, memory card and password. Memory card and password. What do you mean? I asked in confusion. Shinyensi didn't give a clear answer, but just shook his head. He pasted the photo back and suddenly looked at me very seriously. Nan, I know you're Wenbei's family member, and you care a lot about her affairs. But I haven't found out more about this matter yet, and I can't be sure if there is some kind of danger involved." He paused for a moment and then added softly, "Or maybe I'm just overthinking it." Hearing this, I lowered my eyes and tugged at the corner of my mouth with a bit of sourness. Shinyensi wasn't overthinking it. Wenbei's behavior was indeed very abnormal, and this matter was indeed dangerous. In my previous life, the two of us had already verified this with our lives once. They all wanted to protect me, so they tried their best to keep me from getting involved in this matter, but the fact proved that being kept in the dark couldn't ensure absolute safety. Only by eliminating the danger from the source and taking the initiative into our own hands could we achieve true victory. I roughly integrated all the things I knew from these 2 lifetimes in my heart, then I raised my head and smiled at Shinyensi. "Wenbei must have had no other choice when she came to you at that time. I'm sorry that she dragged you into this dangerous matter even though it had nothing to do with you." Shinyensi shook his head. He seemed to have also realized that I wouldn't believe his excuse of overthinking, so he didn't open his mouth to refute, but I clearly heard him thinking in his heart, "In fact, I should thank Wenbei for choosing to tell me about this matter. If Wenbei really offended some dangerous person, it's hard to say that Nan wouldn't be implicated. At least now I still have the opportunity to take the initiative and protect Nan." I felt my heart skip a beat uncontrollably. A feeling of being touched and slightly sour instantly filled my entire chest. I tugged at the corner of my mouth and looked at Shinyensi, and said firmly, "Shinyensi, I don't want to do anything that I'll regret anymore. Even if there is danger, I want to know all the truth." I paused for a moment, and then smiled at him. "Besides, I have you, right?" Hearing my words, Shinyensi was unexpectedly not as excited as I had imagined. He didn't say or think anything. He just looked at me quietly for a few seconds and finally nodded solemnly. After putting away the diary, he urged me to go back and rest. And then he was about to walk out past me. The moment we passed each other, I instinctively grabbed his arm. Shinyensi was taken aback and asked in a low voice, "Is there anything else?" "Tonight." I pursed my lips, my fingers gripping his arm tightened slightly, and I gritted my teeth and said, "Can you sleep with me tonight? I don't want to be alone." Crash. The ornament on Shinyensi's desk, which was worth 800,000 yuan, was shattered into pieces. His previously calm inner world was instantly filled with all kinds of incoherent screams. I watched him scurrying around to clean up with amusement. My originally somewhat whiny mood miraculously calmed down. In the evening, for the first time since we got married, Shinyensi and I lay on the same bed, but he only occupied a corner of the bed, to the extent that he would fall off the bed if he turned over. Considering that I had already given him enough shocks today, so I decided to let him off for now. I turned my back to Shinyensi and tried to fall asleep. However, I kept hearing the sound of his inner muttering from behind. "Am I going to die? Otherwise, why is Nan being so nice to me today? Could there be something wrong with the last medical examination report? My God, this can't be hospice care, can it? No, I have to find a lawyer to consult tomorrow and see how I can leave more things for Nan after I die." At first, I thought about ignoring Shinyensi's inner thoughts and leaving him alone. However, he just wouldn't stop, and what he said were all things I didn't want to hear. I endured it again and again until I couldn't stand it anymore. I simply turned over, raised my hands and feet, and slapped them onto Shinyensi's body. The world instantly became quiet. I hooked the corner of my mouth in satisfaction and snuggled closer into Shinyensi's arms, holding his body that was as stiff as a zombie. I finally gradually felt sleepy and fell asleep. When I woke up the next day, Shinyensi had already gone to the company, since I had nothing to do at home. I simply immersed myself in the study to study Wenbei's diary. Wenbei finally chose to give the diary to Shinyensi. It was very likely that the degree of danger of this matter could only be countered by someone with Shinyensi's status, but based on my understanding of Wenbei, she wasn't the kind of person who would forcefully impose danger on others. That meant that this matter might be more serious than we thought. I spent a whole day studying Wenbei's diary. But there were really too few useful clues in the diary. After looking at it over and over again, I still thought that this matter should start with Chu Mulin. I originally planned to discuss it with Shinyensi in the evening, but when he came back from work, he suddenly took the initiative to say to me, "If you don't have any arrangements recently, would you like to come and work in my company?" He paused for a moment and then added, "I have a cooperation project with Chu Mulin recently, and I think you might want to participate." I immediately perked up. I thought it was just what I needed at the right time, and without hesitation, I said, "No problem, I'll start working tomorrow. There's no rush, wait until I finish the handover here." You can come next Monday, Shinyensi said it seriously. I didn't suspect anything. I was just about to tell him some things I thought of when studying Wenbei's diary today. But then I heard him let out a long sigh of relief in his heart and say, "Great, now I can finally be with my wife all day long. Anyway, Nan already knows what she should know. I don't want to live the kind of life where I can't see my wife for at least 8 hours a day. Come to think of it, it shouldn't be a problem to make contact with Chu Mulin within a week, right? Forget it. I'll ask Xiao Zhan to find his phone number for me later. If it doesn't work, I'll just tell Nan that there's something wrong with the project and think of other ways." During this week, I just watched coldly as Shinyensi kept answering calls and working overtime at home. When it was time for me to go to the company and start working as we had agreed, he really managed to establish contact with Chu Mulin. The two of us looked at the project plan in his office and both felt that things were going a bit too smoothly. I'm afraid that Chu Mulin has already sensed something. Not only do we want to find him, but he might also want to find us. Sure enough, the subsequent project promotion was very efficient. As Shinyensi's secretary, I accompanied him to several meetings and finally met Chu Mulin in person. He looked gentle and refined in person. He would put on a smile when talking to anyone, making people feel very friendly, but maybe because of my preconceived notions, I always felt that his smile was very false. Moreover, I always felt that he was sizing me up intentionally or unintentionally. I pretended not to notice and focused on my work throughout. It wasn't until the meeting ended and Chu Mulin shook hands with Shinyensi to say goodbye. I then pretended to look at him casually and happened to meet his gaze. Chu Mulin seemed to be surprised that I would suddenly look at him and was clearly taken aback, but in an instant, he composed himself completely, smiled politely at me, and then left on the pretext of work. There was no sign of anything abnormal at all. I frowned slightly as I looked at his back. My intuition told me that he wanted to say something to me. It was just that he didn't take action because the occasion wasn't right. But what was there about me that was worthy of his attention? After all, I didn't even know that he had been in a relationship with Wenbei. There was no reason for him to approach me, or was it because of Shinyensi? Even though I had lived 2 lifetimes, the clues I had were still too few. My mind was a bit confused. Especially when I thought about the ending between Shinyensi and me in my previous life. Just thinking about the way he was covered in blood at the end, lying there with his body cold, made me feel extremely irritable. Subconsciously, I reached out and held Shinyensi's hand beside me. The temperature of his palm was very high, and the heat gradually passed to my hand through the place where our skin touched. Feeling this real warmth, I finally felt my heartbeat gradually calm down. And I finally noticed Shinyensi's noisy inner thoughts beside me again. Why did Nan stare at that Chu Mulin for so long? The guy has been gone for ages, and she's still looking. Even if she suspects him, she shouldn't be so fascinated, right? Could it be that Nan likes the type of Chu Mulin? What's so good about him except that he can smile a bit more than me? Maybe I should find a doctor and see if I can get a smile lip done. I'm here racking my brains and exhausting myself over the enemy in the dark. This love-struck guy is actually thinking about a smile lip. I was so angry that I laughed. I let go of his hand and pinched his arm hard. Shinyensi didn't cry out in pain, but just looked at me blankly. What's wrong? Nothing. I just suddenly feel a bit worried about my future. I looked at him, squinted my eyes, and smiled falsely. Shinyensi, if I die, I won't let you go even if I become a ghost. After going back that day, Shinyensi was well behaved for a while. Mainly, he kept thinking about why I suddenly got angry, and at least he didn't have the time to think about a smile lip anymore. However, through this incident, I suddenly began to realize. I can hear Shinyensi's inner thoughts now and know what he's thinking, but Shinyensi doesn't know what I'm thinking. The kidnapping, the rebirth, Wenbei's diary. I've been focusing all my energy on these things during this period, so much so that I've gotten used to directly listening to Shinyensi's inner thoughts to understand him, completely ignoring the need to take the initiative to deal with this relationship with Shinyensi. Shinyensi is clearly full of unease about our relationship now. But then again, as far as I can remember, I don't seem to have done anything excessive to Shinyensi, right? Why does it seem like he takes it for granted that I'll hate him? I secretly sized up Shinyensi, who had entered his working state. I have to admit that when there are no messy inner thoughts ruining the atmosphere, Shinyensi is indeed a very charming man, coupled with the fact that I now clearly know all the things he has done for me over such a long time. It seems like a very natural thing to fall in love with him. I never considered this direction before because of various reasons. Now that I've thought of it, I won't run away from my feelings. The ability to read minds came out of nowhere, and I don't know when it will disappear. I want to live on with Shinyensi and spend a lifetime together. Some things have to be said by us ourselves, after figuring this out. I planned to find a suitable opportunity to have an open talk with Shinyensi. However, in the next month or so, we worked overtime until we were completely exhausted. We not only had to catch up on the progress of the project with Chumulin, Shinyensi was also using his connections to investigate what had happened before Wenbei's accident. I was so busy that I almost went to buy some quick-acting heart-relieving pills and keep them in the office. As for having a romantic talk or confessing to Shinyensi, I didn't have the slightest bit of energy to spare. We kept being busy like this until the weather turned completely cold. Shinyensi suddenly brought back 2 invitation letters. I took them and took a look, and instantly perked up. An invitation letter to Chumulin's birthday party. November 21st is actually his birthday, no wonder. Thinking of the password to open Wenbei's diary, my hand holding the invitation letter trembled a bit. Wenbei mentioned the password. Since it's Chumulin's birthday, this matter must be related to him. I felt that Chumulin had something to say to me during the meeting that day. I'll see if I can talk to him on his birthday. I looked at Shinyensi and smiled slightly under his obscure gaze, with a bit of a soothing meaning. I took the initiative to place my hand on the back of his hand and said softly, "Don't worry, I won't be out of your sight." As soon as I finished speaking, I indeed heard the sound of Shinyensi heaving a sigh of relief in his heart. Then he thought again. Nan doesn't seem to hate me that much recently. Is it because I'm helping her investigate Wenbei's matter? Forget it, it doesn't matter. As long as she's happy, that's enough. I was stunned when I heard this, and my heart couldn't help but be moved. However, before I could savor it properly, Shinyensi's inner thoughts took a turn and he said, "It's not easy for Nan to start accepting me now. I must break the rumor of the substitute, find 2 people to act out a scene. Let them come in front of us and mention the matter of the substitute loudly. In this way, I can clarify it logically and also take the opportunity to warn others not to spread rumors randomly. Okay, that's it. Let Xiaozhang contact them in the evening and hire 2 people with good acting skills. Don't let it slip." Me. When it came to Chumulin's birthday, I somehow found an excuse to dispel Shinyensi's embarrassing idea. However, although it was an excuse, I did have some other thoughts about the matter of the substitute. On the first day of my rebirth, I heard Shinyensi say in his heart that he had made a clarification, including in my previous life. Shinyensi had denied it to me more than once, but I only misunderstood because I saw the substantial thing like Wenbei's diary. Why did other people firmly believe it? At least, considering the situations in both lifetimes, I think there must be someone fueling the flames behind this. And spreading such a rumor must also have some other purpose. Perhaps, it's to drive a wedge between Shinyensi and me. Shinyensi and I discussed and agreed that we would pretend to be on bad terms and act separately when we arrived at the scene. After half of the banquet was over, Chumulin finally couldn't hold back and walked towards me. I pretended to know nothing and exchanged a few pleasantries with him. Sure enough, he took the initiative to mention his relationship with Wenbei. I feigned shock. He didn't say more, just pursed his lips extremely restrainedly. I saw his eyes gradually turn a bit red. That kind of restrained and genuine sadness made me almost dispel my suspicion of him in an instant. Before I could react, he had already composed himself and smiled at me. "Let's exchange contact information. If you have any trouble, you can come to me, and I'll help you. I think Wenbei would also want you to be happy, whether in life or in love." After he finished speaking, he seemed to casually glance in the direction of Shinyensi. I followed his gaze. Shinyensi happened to glance in our direction and then indifferently looked away. It was as if he really didn't care about me at all. I withdrew my gaze, didn't say more, and just exchanged a knowing and bitter smile with Chumulin. I added his contact information. It wasn't until the end of the banquet that I met up with Shinyensi again. After we met, I noticed that his state was a bit strange. He was absent-minded when I talked to him on the way home. I simply fell silent too. It wasn't until we were near home that I heard him say almost indifferently in his heart, "I'm still too useless." I remained silent, got out of the car first, and left without waiting for him. I washed up, tidied up, and went back to the bedroom. It wasn't until he came to the bedside that I suddenly reached out when he wasn't paying attention and pushed him down on the bed. Shinyensi leaned against the headboard and looked at me in surprise. I pressed his shoulders with both hands and looked at him seriously face to face. Shinyensi finally had some flustered voices in his heart. I listened quietly, and after a while, I slowly said, "Shinyensi, for our plan today, did you not want to do it?" Shinyensi seemed not to have expected me to ask this and didn't respond for a moment. I waited patiently. And it was only after a few seconds that he lowered his eyes and said in a hoarse voice, "Don't worry, I won't ruin the plan." I was so angry that I laughed at him. "Shinyensi, did I accuse you? I was just asking if you didn't want to do it." His expression became even more confused. I heard him say in his heart in an extremely matter-of-fact tone, "It doesn't matter whether I want to or not, after all. Nan wants to do this." It seemed that he really hadn't considered himself at all. Whether he was happy or willing didn't matter. As long as this plan was something I wanted to complete, he would definitely do his best to help me. I knew his thoughts very well. I was touched and also very happy, but this wasn't okay. If Shinyensi kept suppressing himself and ignoring his emotions like this, his state would definitely have problems after a long time. I took a deep breath gently. I felt that besides these emotions in my heart, there was also a faint, uncontrollable restlessness. I looked directly into his eyes and intensified the tone. "Shinyensi, I'm asking you again, didn't you want to do it?" He opened his mouth slightly, avoiding my gaze. "It doesn't matter to me. It doesn't matter my ass." I really felt like I was hitting a piece of cotton with a punch. I was so angry that I didn't know what to say. I let go of his shoulders, stretched out my finger, and pointed at the position of his heart. I was both angry and amused as I said, "Shinyensi, it was you who helped me pay off the huge debt after my family's accident, and it was also you who somehow wanted to marry me. I know all the big and small things you've done for me in the past 2 years. I'm not a fool. All your actions clearly show that you like me. Why is it so difficult for you to say this from your mouth?" Shinyensi slowly widened his eyes and looked at me in disbelief. I had thought for so long about the right opportunity and the right words. But I didn't expect that in a fit of excitement, I just blurted out these words. Many things become easier once they have a beginning. Regardless of Shinyensi's expression, I continued to point at his heart and said, "Shinyensi, if you want me to accept you, you have to let me know what you're thinking. I don't have the ability to read minds. How can I understand if you don't say anything? Or is it that I've been flattering myself from the beginning to the end? Do you actually plan to become a monk after you turn 30, and being nice to me now is just about doing good deeds and accumulating virtue?" "I don't. No, it's you don't." He instinctively denied me anxiously. However, he stopped halfway through his words. I didn't let him go and continued to ask, "I don't have what? You don't?" His expression gradually showed a painful entanglement. I felt his chest heaving more and more. After a long time, he said word by word with difficulty, "You're not flattering yourself." After saying this, he seemed to deflate like a punctured balloon, and his body instantly slumped down. I saw him avoid my gaze. I heard a voice in his heart that was almost desolate and said flatly, Nan has seen it. She'll probably hate me even more." "Right, hate, why?" I was so surprised by Shinyensi's inner thoughts that I accidentally blurted out the words, but Shinyensi didn't seem to hear me. I simply patted him and directly asked my question, "By the way, Shinyensi, you seem to have always thought that I hate you. Why do you think so?" He came back to his senses and frowned slightly. "Didn't you hate me before? Since your sophomore year of high school, you suddenly cut off all private contact with me. You didn't pay much attention to me when we met usually, and your attitude towards me became very cold. You should have hated me, right? Moreover, after the accident in your family this time, I took advantage of the situation and forced you to marry me." "Wait a moment, you mean high school?" I never expected that the source of this matter could be traced back so long ago. I thought about it carefully and explained absurdly. "Back in my sophomore year of high school, I thought you were going to get married in an arranged marriage with Wenbei. How could I still maintain private contact with my sister's fiancé? When did I say I was going to have an arranged marriage with Wenbei?" Shinyensi suddenly sat up straight from the headboard and looked at me in disbelief. I spread my hands helplessly and said, "I heard my parents chatting about it. Maybe the adults had that intention. I'm not really sure." Shinyensi pursed his lips, seemingly unable to accept it for a moment. I heard that his inner thoughts had completely turned into a series of interjections due to excessive shock. I found it funny and simply poked his shoulder and snorted, "See, if you had directly told me that you liked me at that time, there wouldn't have been so many problems. I didn't like you at that time. When I heard that you were going to marry my sister, I definitely had to keep my distance from you." Finally, a trace of regret appeared on Shinyensi's face. I pressed on with my advantage and said, "I'm telling you, don't think that now that we're married and have a marriage certificate, everything is fine. Trust and honesty are the foundation of marriage. If you still don't say anything in the future and make me guess, then if I guess wrong, misunderstand you, and don't like you anymore, it will be your own fault. Do you understand?" Shinyensi's expression tightened, and he suddenly looked at me, his eyes faintly shining with anticipation. "Not like me in the future, so you now?" I nodded with a smile. Shinyensi's breath suddenly caught in his throat. The first thing he felt wasn't even joy but confusion. I could hear Shinyensi's inner thoughts. I knew that although he was love-struck every day in his heart, but in fact, he had never dared to think even once that I would like him too. In the balance of our relationship, he had placed himself in a lower position from the very beginning. He could give everything for me, even his life, and I didn't need to repay him for anything. I looked at the surprised and at a loss expression on his face, which was like that of a child who had received candy for the first time. I suddenly didn't want to ask the remaining questions. My heart seemed to be gently gripped by a hand, aching with a sour and bitter feeling. Those hidden affections, those bloody acts of protection, scene after scene played out before my eyes, gradually blurring my vision. Suddenly, I propped myself up and, before Shinyensi could react, turned and sat on his lap. Words were no longer enough to convey my emotions at this moment. I cupped Shinyensi's face and looked at him tenderly yet firmly. Shinyensi, I love you, right now. I urgently need you to fulfill your duties as a husband. You better accept reality quickly, or I might change my mind. As soon as I finished speaking, I felt a force of weightlessness, and Shinyensi and I switched positions, outside the window. The dark clouds covering the moon slowly drifted away with the wind blowing from afar. The road ahead might still be uncertain, but at least, at this moment, the moonlight bathed everything, bright and clear. After that day, Shinyensi's demeanor clearly changed. Specifically, he became even more clingy, and probably because we had cleared up some misunderstandings, he was no longer as reserved as before. Although he still didn't talk much, I knew these things took time. After all, I could still hear his inner thoughts, so I wasn't worried about any misunderstandings. Moreover, recently, Chu Mulan had been contacting me much more frequently. Most of our energy was still focused on this matter. When Chu Mulan reached out to me, he didn't ask me out. Instead, we chatted online. Most of our conversations were about Wenbei. From our chats, I learned that he and Wenbei got together during their sophomore year of college. At first, he didn't let Wenbei go public with their relationship. It was because he felt that his status as an illegitimate child wasn't good enough for Wenbei. Later, after he left the Chu family and succeeded in starting his own business, he proposed to Wenbei, but he never expected that Wenbei would be in a car accident. I was skeptical of his words but still pretended to be sad to cooperate with him. I also noticed that although his hints were subtle when chatting with me, he was indeed insinuating that Shinyensi had always liked Wenbei. He said that Shinyensi used to always hover around Wenbei and did many affectionate things for her. When Shinyensi saw this chat record, he mentally cursed Chu Mulan's ancestors. Slander, it's all slander. I didn't have frequent private contacts with Wenbei at all. I soothed him amusedly while continuing to play along with Chu Mulan. I maintained contact with Chu Mulan online while also pretending to have a strained relationship with Shinyensi in public. Shinyensi acted as if he didn't care about me, and I acted as if I didn't trust him. In this way, we moved in with Chu Mulan for several months. It wasn't until the following spring that Chu Mulan finally started tentatively mentioning some requests to me. By then, all our conversations had tacitly accepted the premise that Shinyensi liked Wenbei. Chu Mulan seemingly accidentally brought up in the flow of conversation. He said that he and Wenbei had a commemorative USB drive, which contained some videos that weren't suitable for others to see. That USB drive should have been left at Wenbei's home, but the house had been bought by Shinyensi. He said that since Shinyensi knew about his relationship with Wenbei, Shinyensi would never agree to give him Wenbei's things, so he asked if I could help get that USB drive for him. My heart trembled when I read these words. I knew we were finally getting close to the deepest, hidden secret. To be honest, we hadn't stopped investigating in these past few months, but apart from confirming that Chu Mulan was the one spreading the substitute rumor, everything else seemed to have hit a dead end. I couldn't help but feel excited when I saw Chu Mulan's request. But the USB drive he mentioned also made me very curious. I told Shinyensi about it. He looked solemn and pondered. I'm sure the clue Wenbei left was a memory card, not a USB drive. Strangely enough, Shinyensi's words made me even more suspicious of the USB drive. After thinking it over, I didn't agree to Chu Mulan's request. I also vaguely implied that I didn't have the right to make demands on Shinyensi and might not be able to enter my former home again. Chu Mulan didn't force me. He just said he would find another way. But a few days later, Shinyensi and I had a big fight at the company because of the substitute rumor. Coincidentally, it was heard by passing colleagues and spread. That night, I took the initiative to contact Chu Mulan and asked him for more details about the USB drive. Chu Mulan called me directly and said, it's an ordinary white USB drive, but the 4 numbers 1121 are engraved on it. My heart skipped a beat, and I blurted out, your birthday. Yeah, his voice was still gentle and refined. But it's also the day we first met. I saw her in the school auditorium and fell in love at first sight. I'll never forget that day. Actually, we went back there once before Wenbei's accident. It was our 6th anniversary. we recorded some things and saved them on this USB drive. This USB drive really holds many memories for me. It means a lot to me. When Nan, I can only count on you for this, please help me. Not until the call ended did I feel like my heart was about to jump out of my throat. I suddenly had a bold guess. When Shinyensi came back, I pulled him into the study and took out Wenbei's diary, pointing at the 2 clues Wenbei left. I told Shinyensi about my phone call with Chu Mulan. Shinyensi immediately understood and said, "You think Wenbei hid the memory card in our university auditorium? It's possible." I didn't want to be too certain. After a moment of thought, Shinyensi said he would send someone to look for it. I nodded and brought up another concern. This USB drive, I have a feeling it's real. Should I go back home? I looked at Shinyensi, seeking his advice, but Shinyensi looked at me seriously. I heard him think, Nan will be sad if she goes back to the Wen family now. But what should I do? I can't stop her from going home forever. I didn't expect that would be Shinyensi's first reaction. To be honest, I hadn't even thought about it. My heart felt like it had been submerged in a huge swimming pool filled with marshmallows. It turned sweet and soft in an instant. I opened my arms, and Shinyensi naturally pulled me into his embrace, leaning against his chest, feeling his heartbeat. I said, "Come with me. I have a hunch that we won't lose this time, so whether it's a disguise or the truth, let's witness it together." A few days later, Shinyensi and I went back to the Wen family's old villa. It was the first time I'd been back since the Wen family's accident. Before, I was afraid of being reminded of the past. Now, with Shinyensi by my side, it didn't seem so sad. The house remained exactly as it was before my parents' accident. Shinyensi and I searched for the USB drive separately. Surprisingly, we found it in my parents' room. The USB drive was locked in a small safe by my parents. I was shocked when I found it, because the password I used to open the safe was the one my parents usually used. This meant my parents had hidden it there. But why did my parents have the USB drive that Chu Mulan was looking for? Could it be that what Wenbei was investigating was also related to my parents? My mind went completely blank. I instinctively looked at Shinyensi, only to find him unexpectedly calm, without a trace of surprise. It was as if he had known all along. I calmed down and tried to listen to his inner thoughts, but his mind was unusually quiet. Shinyensi frowned slightly, his eyes fixed on the USB drive. As if contemplating something, I called his name, and he seemed to gradually come back to his senses. Shinyensi turned to look at me but didn't come close as he usually did. Unexpectedly, he said, Nan, I just found out something recently. I think I know what business Chu Mulan is really doing." My heart trembled, and I whispered, "What is it?" "Human trafficking." Shinyensi emphasized each word. My eyes widened in shock. "Human trafficking, are you sure?" Shinyensi nodded. "I'm afraid that's what Wenbei was trying to expose. And maybe your parents knew about it too." I understood every word Shinyensi said, but when they came together as a sentence, I couldn't make sense of it. Shinyensi's voice turned cold. "Chu Mulan is involved in human trafficking in Southeast Asia. I used some connections to investigate, although I haven't got conclusive evidence yet. I'm pretty sure." I stared at the USB drive in front of me, forcing myself to calm down and think about what Shinyensi said. Shinyensi continued, "About 2 years ago, one of Chu Mulan's shipping routes along the southeast coast was reported. At the same time, his entire funding chain along the southeast coast was completely cut off. He managed to cover his tracks, but he suffered heavy losses and was almost caught." Shinyensi looked up at me, his gaze unreadable. I covered my mouth with my hand, feeling my breathing grow heavy. Shinyensi said word by word, "It was your parents who did it." When my suspicion was confirmed, I couldn't catch my breath and started coughing violently. Shinyensi rushed over immediately to pat my back and help me catch my breath. I waved my hand. I coughed so hard that my stomach started churning, and I barely managed to stop. When I opened my mouth, my voice was hoarse beyond recognition. I cleared my throat and then said with difficulty and confusion, "My parents, yeah. I don't know the details, but I'm certain it was your parents who did it back then." Shinyensi handed me a glass of water. He had always hired people to maintain this house. Looking at the familiar and tidy room, I felt as if my parents had just gone out and would come back laughing and chatting any moment. I opened my mouth, wanting to say something but not knowing where to start. I even began to wonder if this so-called rebirth was just a hallucination before my death. I felt as if my soul had left my body and floated into the air. I was lost, not knowing which way to go. When Nan, "Listen to me. I have to send her away. Chu Mulan will never let her go." 2 voices rang in my ears simultaneously, like a bomb. It jolted my wandering soul back into my body. I reacted a beat too late. In that short moment, I heard Shinyensi say gently but firmly, "I bought you a plane ticket to Country R tonight. I've arranged for someone to pick you up there. I will definitely get to the bottom of this. I'll find out what really happened to Wenbei and your parents. I won't let Chu Mulan go. You've helped me investigate him enough. The more I listened, the more I wanted to shut him up. Shen Yanxi must have planned all this in advance, which was why he had been standing a few steps away from me. Before I could actually cover his mouth, I shouted sharply, Shen Yanxi, shut up. Shen Yanxi ignored me. He even smiled at me. His handsome face full of undisguised love. Nan Nan, be good. After what your family did, Chu Mulan will never spare you. Go to Countryar tonight. There's an old friend of my grandfather there, and no one will dare to touch you. Just wait for me. I'll take care of everything you're worried about, and then I'll come and get you. Looking at Shen Yanxi's determined expression, I knew there was no changing his mind. Even if I refused, he would probably force me to leave the country. Suddenly, I understood why Shen Yanxi distanced himself from me and later wanted a divorce during the last year of our previous life. He must have found out about all this back then. In our previous life, I hadn't had direct contact with Chu Mulan, and my relationship with Shen Yanxi was cold and strained, so Shen Yanxi didn't insist on sending me abroad. Our relationship was different in this life. But it seemed Shen Yanxi hadn't changed at all. He still wanted me to live while he was willing to risk his life. I knew very well. I went over every detail of my relationship with Shen Yanxi from our previous life to this life in my mind. Instead of responding to what Shen Yanxi said, after a long pause, I suddenly asked, Shen Yanxi, I've heard many people say that the Shen family's rise wasn't through ordinary means. They say that all of you in the Shen family are cold-blooded, ruthless, and willing to do anything to achieve your goals. With no genuine feelings for anyone, I've never asked you before, why do you like me so much? After I finished speaking, I casually pulled a chair and sat down. Although Shen Yanxi and I had confessed our feelings to each other, it seemed I had overlooked something. Now that we knew we loved each other and had cleared up the misunderstandings, there was no reason for Shen Yanxi to still see himself as the inferior one in our relationship. There must be something I didn't know. I was prepared for a long, drawn-out discussion with Shen Yanxi. However, to my surprise, after a moment of silence, Shen Yanxi said, I'm not good at expressing things like this. I know. Take your time, I replied softly but firmly. Shen Yanxi had been better at expressing his emotions in front of me recently. Although I didn't know why something as simple as expressing feelings was so difficult for him, I wasn't in a hurry. I was willing to wait, but since he was pushing me now, I had to be more assertive. He gave me a slightly helpless look. I heard him sigh in his mind. Then, he finally began to speak slowly and clumsily. My family is indeed quite different from ordinary ones. Since I can remember, the most common thing I heard was that emotions are the most useless things, and only money, power, and status matter. Therefore, the education I've received has always been about how to become cold-blooded and ruthless and climb to a higher position. He paused and let out a sigh. Strangely, I felt that he seemed a bit more relaxed. Maybe he decided to just let it all go, I thought to myself, but still waited patiently for him to continue. All the children in my family have to take a special class at a very young age, which is about how to get rid of useless emotions, such as feelings of compassion, sympathy, and other forms of tenderness. This class doesn't teach anything else. They just prepare a puppy and a knife, and what I'm supposed to do is kill the puppy with the knife. What the hell? That's crazy. I couldn't hold back and blurted out. Shen Yanxi smiled, and I almost wanted to stop him from talking, but if I stopped him now, I didn't know if I'd ever get another chance to hear him say these things. So I endured and waited for him to gradually reveal the real him to me. Shen Yanxi continued. I was just a child then, and of course, I couldn't bring myself to do it. They locked me up. Without food or water, I wouldn't be able to get out unless I killed the puppy. Shen Yanxi spoke calmly, but all I wanted was to go back in time and get rid of those who had forced him. Did you do it in the end? I asked softly, my voice trembling slightly. Shen Yanxi let out a bitter laugh and shook his head, full of self-mockery. Yes, I did. I cut myself a few times, got some blood on me, and then threw the dog out through the only vent. When the person watching me came to check on me and saw that I was covered in blood, they opened the door. I told them the dog had tried to attack me, and I'd killed it and thrown it out. I knew that if they couldn't find the puppy's body and the blood on me didn't contain animal blood, they'd easily figure out I was lying. But at my age and with my abilities back then, that was the best I could do. I gritted my teeth and endured for a while, then suddenly stood up. I walked over and hugged him, wanting to offer some comfort. He stiffened for a moment, then gently stroked my head before continuing. After saying that, I fainted because I was too weak. But when I woke up again, I heard that they'd detected animal blood in the blood on me and also found the puppy's body. I barely passed that test. It was only later that I learned an aunt who was close to my mother had helped me. The aunt told me that she'd been closely watching and trying to find a way to help me during those days I was locked up, and she'd heard what I said as soon as I said it. Coincidentally, my second younger brother was also taking that class at the time, and we used puppies from the same litter, which looked very similar. I was probably the only one in my family who resisted that task extremely. Anyway, my second younger brother completed it smoothly. The aunt was in charge of disposing of the used props, so she used that puppy's body to help me get away with it. Shinyensi gave a self-deprecating smile. Even though I managed to get through it, I don't think the puppy could have survived. It was very young, hadn't eaten or drunk anything for days, and was already very weak. The vent I threw it out of was very high. Even if it didn't die from the fall, it wouldn't have had the strength to go out and seek help. Besides, that high-end residential area was remote, so it was almost certain to die. So, no matter how you look at it, I'm actually the murderer, and I can't escape that. I always told myself that. However, I never expected that a few years later, when I went back with Wenbei to get exam materials, I unexpectedly saw it again. My heart skipped a beat, and I stared at him in shock. Shinyensi's voice became hoarse and even trembled slightly. Those people in the Shin family wouldn't notice. But I'd been with that puppy for several days, and I knew there was a small flaw on its nose. I couldn't be mistaken, so I was almost stunned, unable to believe it. When Bei told me that her younger sister had found the puppy outside a few years ago, the puppy had been on the verge of death at that time, looking like it was about to die, but her younger sister didn't want to give up and took it to the hospital, and surprisingly, it was saved. Then their family adopted the puppy. I suddenly pushed Shinyensi away, my mouth wide open in disbelief. You mean Chocho? I did save a dying puppy in the neighborhood when I was a child. The puppy had a broken hind leg and always limped even after it was cured. I never thought it was. Shinyensi curved his lips, looking at me deeply, and nodded solemnly. His eyes were slightly red, and his voice was full of restraint. He said, Nan Nan. You probably can't imagine how I felt at that moment. In a place like the Shin family, emotions are worthless. There's no family affection, no trust. You can't be weak, and you can't show any vulnerability, or you'll die. Most of my older brothers and sisters died in infighting for power and profit. Even though I didn't want to accept that way of life, after all these years, I was almost ready to give in. But at that moment, you made me realize that my resistance had been meaningful. Nan Nan, do you know? At that moment, I felt like I was saved. He smiled happily. But I couldn't hold back anymore. With tears streaming down my face, I kissed him. I finally understood why he had been suppressing his feelings, why simple expressions were so difficult for him, and I also finally understood why he had gone to such lengths. Even though he knew that investigating Chu Mulan's affairs would be extremely dangerous, he still didn't hesitate. It wasn't just for me, perhaps in his heart. There had always been that pure kindness and respect for life that the child within him had originally possessed. I pushed him away, crying so hard that I could barely breathe. He gently kissed the tears off my face and whispered in my ear tenderly, Nan Nan, the reason I'm standing here today is that you saved me, but I also know very well that my feelings for you are no longer just gratitude, no matter from which perspective. I should help you and have every reason to protect your safety. He pressed his forehead against mine and said softly, Nan Nan, I don't want to feel powerless again. I leaned against Shinyensi, and it took a long time for my emotions to calm down. In Shinyensi's mind, he probably still felt that he owed me a debt of gratitude, even though saving that puppy was just a random act on my part, but he had taken it upon himself to repay that debt. Gratitude and love. These are the two most complex and heavy emotions in the world. Shinyensi carried both of them, which was why he had always placed me on a pedestal in his heart. I finally understood it all, but why should I accept his self-imposed offering? We're just a couple who love each other. I composed myself, pushed him away, and stared at him seriously. Shinyensi, tell me, what do you plan to do after you send me away? Shinyensi thought to himself, after I take over the Shin family, I can restore those severed relationships. I will definitely make Chu Mulan pay the price, but what he said aloud was, I'll just do some business with him. As long as he leaves you alone in the future, that'll be fine. Hearing these two completely different statements, I sneered. Shinyensi, do you think I'm stupid? Let me ask you, isn't what Chu Mulan is doing extremely hateful? Doesn't he deserve to die 1,000 times? Shinyensi nodded seriously. I was so angry with him that I didn't know what to say. I simply slapped him on the head, then call the police. Wenbei might not have been able to report it, but you surely can. What he's done is enough to get him executed 1,000 times over. Shinyensi rarely looked so stunned when it came to serious matters. I heard him think, but even if we catch him and sentence him to death, It's too easy for him, I gritted my teeth. Looking at him with a sense of frustration, considering the environment he grew up in, it wasn't surprising that he thought this way, but I couldn't let him do this. I thought of many things to say, but when it came to it, I didn't know how to put them into words. Finally, I let out a long sigh and said, Shinyensi, I know you have your ways, you want to catch him with your own hands and make him suffer, you don't want him to die easily. I also want to kill him with my own hands. But then what would be the point of everything you've done for me, Wenbei, my parents, and Shinyensi? They had protected me until the very last moment, hoping that I could live a good life. I'm investigating Wenbei's diary and delving into Chu Mulan's dangerous business because I don't want my loved ones to die in vain, but not avoiding danger doesn't mean I want to seek death, I said seriously to Shinyensi. I don't know what you're thinking, are you planning to die with Chu Mulan? But from the beginning to the end, I've only wanted us to live together. Of course, if there's no other choice and we end up dying, that's just how it is, but I will never look down on my life, and I will never seek revenge at the cost of my life. So, Shinyensi, don't sacrifice your life to repay a debt of gratitude, and don't sacrifice your life to protect me. We will find the truth, stop him, and make him pay the price. Suddenly, I relaxed, tilted my head at him, and smiled. Shinyensi, after this is all over, come with me to see Wenbei and my parents. Let's tell them everything has been resolved and put their minds at ease. Then we can also tell them about our marriage. We've come this far, the evidence and the truth are all just one step away. We need to make him pay the price and also ensure that we can be together in the future. To achieve this, there's only one way, isn't there? I saw Shinyensi's eyes flicker, and his expression gradually relaxed. I leaned in and kissed him, then buried my head in his shoulder, feeling the warmth of his body. Finally, I said, Shinyensi, let's make a choice that benefits both of us. I finally managed to persuade Shinyensi. We hadn't called the police before because we weren't sure whether Wenbei's and my parents' deaths were accidents, not to mention Wenbei's ambiguous diary, but now that we had some evidence of Chu Mulan's crimes, calling the police was indeed the best option. With the Shin family's influence, Chu Mulan wouldn't be able to stop us. We quickly began to take action. However, I never expected that Chu Mulan would also act in advance. In my previous life, I was tricked into going out, so in this life, I naturally thought Chu Mulan would find an excuse to invite me out, but unexpectedly, I was knocked out directly while I was out. When I woke up, I found myself chained up in a room. This place was quite familiar to me. It was the same place I was taken to when I was kidnapped in my previous life. Unlike last time, there was someone in front of me this time. Chu Mulan was still wearing a well-tailored white shirt. He was sitting at the table with his head resting on his hand, smiling gently at me. The moment our eyes met, I heard him say in a warm and friendly voice, "You're awake." I sat up almost instinctively, my nerves instantly on edge. Chu Mulan smiled and shook his head. "Don't be nervous. I just invited you here to ask you something." Invited, I shook the chains on my body and said sarcastically. Chu Mulan didn't seem to care. He took out a USB drive and played with it casually. The moment I saw the USB drive clearly, I was stunned. I'd actually just gone out to throw out the trash, and before that, I'd just finished watching the contents of the USB drive left by Wenbei. The content was unexpected. I didn't quite understand it. So I'd been deep in thought and didn't realize I'd brought the USB drive with me. I fell silent, but Chu Mulan seemed to misunderstand. He walked up to me with the USB drive, bent slightly, and looked down at me. There was still a gentle smile on his face, but his voice was icy cold. "I've already seen the contents of the USB drive. This USB drive is fake, isn't it?" His tone was so certain that it made me suspicious. I remained calm and told the truth. "It's real," Chu Mulan sneered. "When Nan, we're at this point, there's no need for you to keep pretending." His eyes grew colder. "To be honest with you, before Wenbei died, I found out that she was trying to send out a message, but I stopped her. I couldn't figure out who she was trying to ask for help, but no matter how I thought about it, Shinyensi was the most likely person, so I've been keeping an eye on him for the past 2 years. When you two suddenly reached out to me, I immediately suspected that you knew something. Sure enough, after just a little probing, you actually went to the Wen family's house and found the USB drive. Not only that, but Shinyensi even found out about my business. There's no point in you pretending to know nothing now, is there?" I didn't show any reaction on the surface to what he said, but I was secretly shocked. It seemed that our hasty approach had confirmed for him that Wenbei had given the evidence to Shinyensi. No wonder when we approached him, it felt like he also wanted to find us. Even the address of the Wen family's house was probably his guess or test. Unexpectedly, he'd guessed right. We'd been too careless. I felt a bit regretful, After pursing my lips and remaining silent for a while, I slowly said, "So, was this USB drive what Wenbei was trying to pass on at that time?" Chu Mulan nodded generously, "Yes. But I discovered it before she could send it out that time. She was quite smart, though. She had a backup plan and didn't carry the USB drive with her. I actually used some methods to get out of her what was on it later, but she stubbornly refused to say where she had hidden it. I wasted my sincere invitation for her to make money with us before. I even took her to our core base and showed her our punishment scene. Turns out she pretended to join us, but secretly collected evidence to stab me in the back. She was really hateful." Hearing his words, I suddenly widened my eyes and exclaimed in a voice that lost its usual pitch, "What methods did you use? What did you do to her?" Chu Mulan remained unmoved and even smiled at me. "Don't be so fierce, your sisters. Wenbei was much gentler than you." As he spoke, he walked towards the table. "Of course, I used some methods to make her talk. You should already know what business I'm in." "Right." He walked back to the table and sat down, playing with the USB drive casually as he said indifferently, "Our business mainly involves exporting overseas. Coincidentally, your family's shipping business in the southern and southeastern coastal areas is doing very well, and Wenbei was, without a doubt, the successor of your family's company. Of course, if you were the successor, I would have chased you back then." After saying that, he smiled at me. I felt a physical sense of nausea. He continued, "You know, our business dealing with people is different from dealing with cats and dogs. Animals are obedient, but human consciousness is too strong, so they're not easy to manage. For those who try to run away, we don't directly get rid of them when we catch them. We bring them back to the base and call everyone else to witness the fate of those who try to escape. The fear in people's hearts is much more effective than iron chains. After seeing others being tortured to death, they don't dare to have the idea of running away. Of course, since I wanted Wenbei to join us, I naturally had to let her know about these things, which is why I took her to see the punishment scene, but I never expected that she would do such a thing even knowing our methods. She was really stupid." I was so angry that I couldn't speak for a moment and could only stare at him fiercely. Chu Mulan put away that false smile, and his expression immediately turned cold and ruthless. After Wenbei agreed to join us, I had someone keep an eye on her 24 hours a day. I really didn't expect that, even in such a situation, she could still find the opportunity to collect evidence. By the way, can you tell me how Wenbei managed to get in touch with Xin Yanxi? She was clearly stopped by me when she tried to send the message, but Xin Yanxi still found out. I really can't figure it out. I snorted disdainfully. If you can't figure it out, it just shows that you're stupid. You scumbag. Sure enough, Wenbei didn't not want to call the police. She couldn't. Say whatever you want. In the end, you've all lost to me, haven't you? Chu Mulan casually threw the USB drive into the trash can, wiped his hands, and said indifferently, "Since the USB drive you have is fake, the real one must be with Xin Yanxi. He should be here soon. The three of us can finally have a good talk face to face." My heart skipped a beat, and my first reaction was to worry if Xin Yanxi was following our plan. I was kidnapped so suddenly this time that I was really worried he would act impulsively out of anxiety. After all, in his heart, my life is more important than anything else. I was very uneasy, but there was nothing else I could do now. I could only force myself to suppress it and stared coldly at Chu Mulan. I still had some doubts that I couldn't figure out. I asked, "How can you be so sure that the USB drive in my hand is definitely fake?" "I'm not a fool." He looked at me with a bit of surprise in his eyes. "The USB drive contains the records of my relationship with Wenbei. Why would she pass on something that no one cares about? She even sacrificed her life for it." He paused and then said through gritted teeth, "However, I guess your parents found out something from Wenbei. They really loved their daughter. In the year after Wenbei died, they kept investigating our legitimate business. Several of our major funding chains were cut off by your parents. They were almost about to trace it back to me, so I had to deal with them quickly." I was stunned for a moment and then roared, "You killed my parents." He shrugged indifferently. "Of course, I also killed Wenbei. I couldn't possibly keep the lives of those who tried to send me to prison, could I?" He said it so lightly, as if he hadn't killed people but some chickens and ducks for dinner. I was so angry that I gasped for breath and struggled to rush towards him, but the iron chains held me back. No wonder I wanted to take a leave of absence from school and go back to accompany my parents for a while after Wenbei died, but they acted unusually and firmly insisted that I must go back to complete my studies. Their excuse at that time was that the Wen family could only be handed over to me in the future, and I should study hard, so they already knew at that time. I felt that I had to use a great deal of effort to breathe. but I still couldn't catch my breath because of the pain. He suddenly said again, "Come to think of it, Shinyensi didn't seem to care much about this matter before, but recently, he started investigating Wenbei's affairs on a large scale. I'm afraid it's all for you. I really have you to thank. I finally have the opportunity to get rid of this hidden danger once and for all." My heart tightened when I heard the words, "get rid of this hidden danger once and for all." Before I could think deeper about it, suddenly, the footsteps of several people were heard outside. My heart skipped a beat, and I instinctively looked towards the door. The next second, several people brought Shinyensi in. He was still wearing the clothes I wore on the day I was kidnapped, but he looked relatively neat. However, my first reaction was not joy. He actually came here alone. Just like in the previous life, he didn't even bring a bodyguard. I immediately panicked. But now I couldn't ask anything, nor could I show my panic. My heart was still filled with grief and indignation because of what Chu Mulan had just said, but the situation was not optimistic, so I could only force myself to suppress these emotions. I kept staring closely at Shinyensi. After he came in, he looked at me the first moment, and then he walked directly in front of Chu Mulan. The people who came in with him didn't leave but surrounded him. I couldn't see the situation inside clearly, but I could hear the voices. Shinyensi said coldly, "I prepared the thing you want, and I didn't bring anyone else. Let Wen Nan go." Chu Mulan sneered, "Now that you're here, do you really think you can leave? Although it's understandable that you're worried and act recklessly, Shinyensi, I didn't expect you to be so irrational. I told you to come alone, and you really came alone. Since you both know my secret, you're not leaving today." Shinyensi didn't respond to him. I really wanted to know what Shinyensi's situation was now. It was just that I couldn't hear anything useful from his inner thoughts. Shinyensi usually had a lot of thoughts in his mind and talked a lot, but once he really entered a highly concentrated state, he had no distracting thoughts at all. After waiting for a long time, Shinyensi finally said in a deep voice, "What Wenbei left wasn't a USB drive but a memory card. She hid it in the gap of the seat in the auditorium of School X. The content inside is a complete process of a murder, in a warehouse. There were a lot of people around, and your clear face was shown." When I heard Shinyensi finish speaking, I widened my eyes first. Did Wenbei really manage to film it? And without a doubt, this was probably the punishment scene that Chu Mulan had just mentioned. "Give it to me." Chu Mulan suddenly raised his voice, and then there was silence all around. I was so nervous that my palms started to sweat. Shinyensi sneered, "You're planning to kill both of us, and you still expect me to give it to you." As soon as Shinyensi finished speaking, the group of people surrounding him suddenly assumed a posture as if they were going to snatch it by force. But Shinyensi's voice didn't waver at all. "I prepared the thing, but I didn't say I brought it with me. Let Wen Nan leave, and I'll stay, as long as she's safe and sound. I promise to give you the thing." Chu Mulan flatly refused. "Impossible. Since I dared to tell her everything, I have no intention of letting her leave. You can go, and she stays. I can also get that shipping route that your Shin family has always wanted. The Wen family has caused me so much trouble. If you hadn't married her the first moment after the Wen family's accident, do you think I would have let her live until today?" Shinyensi remained unmoved. "If my people don't see Wen Nan leave safely before dawn, they will hand this thing over to the police. If you don't believe it, you can kill us right now." Chu Mulan's voice was ice cold. "Shinyensi, don't underestimate me. I also have people outside. Even if I really kill you too, your people may not have the ability to hand over the thing. Then you can give it a try." Shinyensi even let out a light laugh, which was the strong confidence brought by his absolute certainty. "It's difficult to bring you down, but I can still manage to bring the entire Shin family down with you and die together with you. Let's see if, after all your painstaking efforts to climb to this position, you're willing to risk your life and bet with me." As soon as Shinyensi finished speaking, I heard Chu Mulan curse viciously. Sure enough, when Chu Mulan told me everything so readily just now, he had no intention of letting me live. It seemed that Wenbei and my parents had caused him a lot of trouble. He probably hated our Wen family to the core. It's just that he probably didn't expect, even though he had been monitoring Wenbei so closely, Wenbei could still obtain such evidence that left him with no room to refute. He probably originally planned to get the evidence from us and then directly deal with us, but now he had to consider one more thing. However, after listening to Shinyensi's words and combining all the things that had happened during this period, I suddenly understood everything. The truth made me couldn't help laughing. In an instant, everyone's eyes were suddenly turned towards me. Chu Mulan looked at me fiercely and said coldly, "Wen Nan, what are you laughing at?" "I'm laughing at your arrogance and conceit. You thought you had Wenbei under your control, but in the end, you were just being played by her. I laughed more and more recklessly. Chu Mulan suddenly pushed through the crowd and walked in front of me. Shin Yanxi immediately followed. At the same time, the group of people surrounding Shin Yanxi all took out their guns and pointed them at him. The atmosphere at the scene instantly became extremely tense. However, even though I was surrounded by guns now, I wasn't scared at all. I even looked at Chu Mulan with a smile and said softly, "I didn't lie to you just now. The USB drive you got was the one that Wenbei pretended to pass on the message with. To be honest, when I first saw the content inside, I couldn't figure it out either, but now I know. After Wenbei found that she really couldn't break through your surveillance, she chose to give the clue to Shin Yanxi. She was being closely monitored by you. So she didn't dare to pass on the memory card openly. After all, this memory card was the biggest threat to you. Once there was any mistake, all her previous efforts would be in vain. So, as a last resort, she used a very roundabout way." Shin Yanxi timely picked up the conversation and told Chu Mulan how Wenbei had passed on the message to him. Chu Mulan couldn't accept it. Impossible. I only took her to the base for the first time in City Z. She had no chance to record the video at all. Moreover, how could she have prepared to pass on the message with the diary so early? Are you two playing me? I sneered. That's why I said you were completely played by Wenbei. After she was forced to join you, she knew that it would be impossible for her to get away easily, so she prepared a basket in advance. If she couldn't expose you herself, she would throw the evidence into the basket, and this diary is the basket. Chu Mulan was completely stunned. He still didn't believe it. What you said is just a conclusion. From the time she left the diary until her death, almost a year passed. There were too many possibilities of accidents during this period. It was simply impossible to achieve. I rolled my eyes without hesitation. That's why I said you're stupid. After Wenbei was threatened by you to join, she should have been closely monitored by you immediately. At that time, she judged that your power was very strong. And among the people she knew, the only one who could compete with you was Shin Yanxi. But with her character, she wouldn't simply involve Shin Yanxi in such a dangerous matter. So at first, she definitely planned to try to expose you herself. Only if she really couldn't do it would she ask Shin Yanxi for help. If she wanted to ask Shin Yanxi for help, she had to leave a clue for Shin Yanxi. You're right. She really couldn't have predicted everything that would happen a year in advance. So with the things she could use at that time, only this diary could convey an accurate signal in advance. Whether it was the password, the address, or the diary itself, they were all conveying the same message. That is, this matter was related to you, and the reason she finally chose to put the memory card in the place where you first met was just to match the clue she left for Shin Yanxi. Chu Mulan's eyes became more and more fierce, and they even began to turn red faintly. She even made the worst-case scenario. The code she left could only be understood by Shin Yanxi. In this way, even if you found this diary in advance, it wouldn't be easy for you to find the memory card. However, the way Wenbei passed on the message was indeed too obscure. Even we investigated for a long time and even took the risk to get close to you. I paused for a moment, then gave Chu Mulan a malicious smile. Come to think of it, I should thank you. If you hadn't told me the date and place where you first met, we might have had to wait until the school auditorium was renovated to find the memory card. In fact, if I hadn't been reborn this time, we would never have known what Wenbei really meant until we died. Wenbei's plan was full of uncertainties and elements of luck, and it was full of loopholes. However, the more I thought about it, the sadder I felt. Wenbei's situation must have been extremely difficult at that time. She was being monitored and forced to do things she didn't want to do. She held the hopes of those abducted people in her hands, but she was at a loss as to how to save them. Chu Mulan was involved in a business with great influence. There were possibilities that the people he blocked couldn't pass on the evidence, and possibilities that the methods he discovered couldn't be used. She didn't have the opportunity to make mistakes. Once Chu Mulan knew the existence of this evidence, there would be no way to stop his criminal behavior. Wenbei must have endured indescribable pressure. Perhaps choosing such an extreme way in the end was also because she really wanted to be free. As for this USB drive, I'm afraid she deliberately let you find it. The purpose was to completely divert your attention. For this, she even risked her own life. I spoke again, and my whole demeanor became completely cold. Chu Mulan, you're too conceited. You took advantage of Wenbei's feelings and thought you had her completely under your control. However, you never expected that it was this relationship you despised that exposed everything about you and finally sent you to hell. After I finished speaking, Chu Mulan roared out of control. What he thought was having everything under control was just an illusion of being toyed with by others. Wenbei had been dead for 2 years, and he had been played for 2 years. He thought he was acting with me and tricking me into finding the USB drive for him. but he didn't know that the real evidence was also delivered to us by his own actions. This realization must be more painful than killing him. The more he couldn't accept the reality, the more satisfied I felt. Shinyensi had quietly walked to my side. Before we could have any communication, Chu Mulan suddenly laughed twice and said harshly, "Forget it, Wenbei is already dead, I don't need to argue with her, neither of you is leaving today, I don't want the memory card anymore, but I'll take your lives." As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly took out a gun and pulled the trigger at me. He was so fast that I didn't even have time to react. However, the next second, Shinyensi suddenly threw himself on me. I was stunned for a moment and shouted Shinyensi's name in a voice that lost its usual pitch. Suddenly, a neat and orderly sound of footsteps came from outside the room. I smelled the smell of blood coming from Shinyensi, and it gradually overlapped with the memories of my previous life. Those emotions that I had forcibly suppressed before couldn't be controlled anymore and surged out all at once. I seemed to be able to do nothing but shout Shinyensi's name. I didn't even feel that my wrist was scratched by the iron chain during the struggle. "Nan Nan, I'm fine, don't be afraid." I don't know when Shinyensi hugged me and gently soothed my back. I was gradually pulled back to reality by his voice. I don't know when a group of police officers rushed into the room. However, Chu Mulan was nowhere to be seen. I stared blankly at Shinyensi. He gently kissed away my tears and slowly raised the corners of his mouth. "It's all over, Nan Nan, I didn't forget what you said. We wanted to win without any worries. And this time we did it. It took me a long time to react." It turned out that Shinyensi's actions this time were all in cooperation with the police. I let out a long sigh of relief and completely relaxed. Then I fainted unceremoniously. Everything was finally over. When I woke up again, I was in the hospital. Shinyensi was shot in the leg by Chu Mulan's final attack, and his hospital bed was next to mine, but he didn't lie in his own bed. Instead, he squeezed in with me. When he saw that I had woken up, he suddenly hugged me and cried silently. It was really not easy for us to be alive and hugging each other after going through so many things, but no matter how difficult it was, I couldn't stand it anymore after he hugged me for 20 minutes. I forcefully pulled Shinyensi away. Just as I was about to ask him to tell me what happened next, I suddenly remembered the last sentence I heard before I fainted. I suddenly widened my eyes in disbelief and said, "By the way, Shinyensi, you said this time before, could it be that you?" Shinyensi wiped the corner of his eye and smiled at me. Yeah, I remembered something these past few days. Sure enough, Shinyensi remembered the things of his previous life. Then, Shinyensi told me the parts that I didn't know. After I was kidnapped, he remembered some things. At that time, his people had already found the memory card, and he had also gotten in touch with the police. After he submitted the evidence to the police by combining the memories of the two lives, they formulated this plan. In his previous life, Shinyensi had already figured out the structure of the base where I was kidnapped clearly, so this time, he drew a map for the police according to his memory, and after discussion, it was decided that he would come first to delay the time and divert Chu Mulan's attention. Shinyensi had the latest communication and recording devices provided by the police on him. In order not to alert the enemy, he really went to meet Chu Mulan alone. And the police monitored the situation here in real time outside. At the same time, another group of police officers started searching for evidence in the base according to the map provided by Shinyensi. They made sure not to give Chu Mulan any chance to take advantage of loopholes and turn this situation around this time. After we found the USB drive, Chu Mulan might have been in a hurry or overconfident. He didn't bring many people to the base that day, and they were quickly subdued by the police. The moment Chu Mulan saw the police, he ran away from the other side, but in the end, he only reached the exit and was captured by the police who had already set up an inescapable net. There was nothing more we could do at this point. After that, we cooperated with the evidence collection. When this shocking human trafficking case that shook the whole country was completely solved, I went to see Chu Mulan once. I took Wenbei's diary and gave it to him. Not for anything else, I just thought that Wenbei should witness his death. Before leaving, on a whim, I asked him one more question. "Chu Mulan, did you have any real feelings for Wenbei at that time?" Chu Mulan was silent for a while, and finally gave a mocking smile. "You young masters and ladies born with a silver spoon in your mouth are really ridiculous. You surely don't understand, living in a dark and sunless house, eating the vegetable leaves that others don't want, and wearing the clothes fished out of the trash can. The feeling that everyone looks down on you and anyone can bully you." Even when I returned to the Chu family later, the situation was the same. "Feelings, only people like you would value such useless things. I'm not that pathetic." You see, in the end, even though everyone scolds and spurns me, No one looks down on me, they have to admit that I'm amazing, which proves that my choice was right. After listening, I nodded and didn't say anything more. Everyone has their own aspirations, but I really wish that he could be a beast in his next life. On the day Chu Mulin was executed, Shin Yanxi and I went to the cemetery together. The police later told us, Chu Mulin's business sold young girls. They focused on quality rather than quantity, and the number of people transported at one time wasn't large. These girls would first receive unified training in various reception or flattering skills after being sent abroad, then they would be sold to their regular business partners. And those girls were either orphans or people who were not valued in their families. Some people disappeared without anyone knowing. Some people were ignored by their families after receiving some money. In the end, very few people actually reported the cases, which was why Chu Mulin had been operating until now. There was only one girl. She was born in a family that favored sons over daughters and had depended on her elder sister since childhood. She was sold to Chu Mulin after being deceived by her boyfriend, and her parents ignored her after receiving a sum of money. But her elder sister didn't accept it and finally found a way to get into this place. And the video left by Wenbei was actually taken by this elder sister. This was learned from the mouths of the surviving girls, but they couldn't clearly say what exactly happened at that time. The girl who gave the memory card to Wenbei said that among those abducted girls, there had always been a rumor, that is, no matter who wanted to escape, they should take this memory card with them. Over the years, this memory card had passed through the hands of many girls. They all knew that if they were caught while trying to escape, they wouldn't be killed immediately. They still had the opportunity to meet other people and could pass this evidence on. As long as there was one person who didn't give up, one day they could save everyone. That day, this memory card was given to Wenbei, and thus, the prelude to all the subsequent events was opened. I told the whole story to Wenbei, my parents. The result of the struggle wasn't necessarily victory. Or victory would come at a great cost, but if people really had souls, I hope that Wenbei and my parents can let go after hearing this. At least we did a good thing, didn't we? I chattered on in front of the tombstone for a long time. Shin Yanxi stayed by my side all the time, although he didn't say anything. Just his presence made me feel very at ease. When we were leaving and walking out, I suddenly grabbed his hand and said, Shin Yanxi, I'll tell you a secret. I can really read minds. I turned to him and winked slyly, then slowly said, for example, I know that you were just thinking of asking Xiao Zhang to prepare a press conference to officially clarify the so-called substitute rumor. Shin Yanxi's pupils dilated slightly. He blurted out, how do you know? I hummed triumphantly, I told you I can read minds. Shin Yanxi didn't say anything. I continued, we both know that Chu Mulin fanned the flames of that substitute rumor. Now that he's dead, the rumor is long gone. Let's just deal with it coldly. It will be dispelled naturally after a long time. I could hear Shin Yanxi's muttering in my ear, Chongjia, be good and listen. I'll let you do whatever you want tonight. Okay, Shin Yanxi, stop muttering in your heart. If you have the guts, say it out loud. Okay, me. The moment we walked out of the cemetery, a group of butterflies flew past me. They flew around the cemetery in a group. Then they all flew towards the clear blue sky together, charging towards a new life.